On the other hand, drug lord Frank Amick realized that the situation was once again out of his control, and the fire of his ambition seemed to be extinguished again. And there is another more deadly thing happened. Whether it is the bodyguards around him or Chris the Red Whirlwind, they all got separated from him. An unprecedented sense of fear struck, and just now he had vaguely seen a few strange smiles on his son Chris's face. All kinds of disturbing phenomena appeared, so he had to wonder whether all this was unintentional or whether there were other plans. Soon Frank Amick was no longer in the mood to guess the miscellaneous things in his mind, because the death melee provoked by him was approaching, and an invitation that he could not refuse was also sent to him. As the smoke gradually dissipated, the Punisher began to rush downstairs to the factory building, replacing the sniper rifle in his hand with an M16 automatic rifle. 2m16 automatic rifles were played by the Punisher. In his hands, the firepower of the M16 automatic rifles was like a light machine gun. The most violent scene was staged in the factory. Flame. In this short 50 meters, the Punisher has poured nearly 200 to 300 rounds of bullets, and the weapons in his hands are constantly changing, but no matter what kind of weapon it is, the Punisher has gained bonuses in the hands of the Punisher. The bullets all played their due role. The moment the Punisher stepped into the factory building, everyone who survived the melee consciously held back the pain and stopped screaming, and even their breathing rate decreased. Peter, who was standing on a high place to see the whole situation, the only sound he could hear now was the sound of the Punisher's leather shoes rubbing against the ground. The whole factory building was as quiet and terrifying as death. This twilight picture made Peter sigh in his heart. This is the power of the Punisher. Just one person can make a sudden change in the style of painting, seamlessly changing from a fierce gunfight movie to a thrilling horror movie. I didn't feel any suddenness, as if everything was predestined. Just as Peter was running wild in his mind, Belle, who had been shot before, reappeared in the factory building, hiding in a secret corner as if waiting for something. It turned out that after retreating to a safe position, Belle did not force his way out, but chose to wait quietly for the development of the situation. He has full confidence in judging such a favorable situation, and no one is willing to give up. The same is true for hunters hiding in the dark. It is only a matter of time before they come out to harvest the remaining prey. And Belle's last chance to come back is also in it, and the next thing is life or death depends on whether he can catch that short-lived moment. As for the fact that it is impossible to escape, this kind of thought is absolutely impossible to appear in Belle's mind. After all, middle-level personnel like Belle are neither high nor low. Once the mission fails, Belle must be the first to take the blame. As the leader of the team, he is so conscious. Therefore, he can only choose to take a gamble to maintain his status in the organization. Belle has won the previous several dangerous missions, but this time he still has a chance to succeed. Maybe the hunter is just a waste who shoots black guns in the back. Holding this belief, Belle forcibly suppressed the pain in his body, and opened the medical bag he carried with trembling hands. First aid tools such as gauze, bandages, and band-aids were scattered on the ground. After a lot of tossing, he finally treated the wound. However, Belle was completely dumbfounded when the Punisher showed off the series of attacks. His previous confidence was shattered bit by bit, and despair welled up in his heart. He also recognized that the hunter behind the scenes was the most vicious person in recent times, the Punisher, but he didn't know much about it. Because almost no one survived where he went, even those who survived by chance were forced to have mental illness, and those who could not produce value would eventually die, and naturally it was recorded in the hands of the Punisher. Originally, it was only aimed at a few gangster families involved in human trafficking next door, but it was unexpected that this time it would start targeting the drug market. Belle tried his best to calm down and observe the Punisher. The various flaws he noticed seemed to be perfect, giving people the illusion that he could kill the Punisher with a single raise of his hand. But his intuition told him that these were just extremely insidious traps, and behind the flaws were piles of tragic dead bodies, the grievances of colleagues who were as careless as him. He kept making predictions in his mind, but the various scenes he predicted were appalling. No matter what method he chose to attack, he couldn't escape the tragic death on the street. He could no longer see the slightest possibility of victory. To put it simply, the level of the two is not at the same level at all. It can even be said that adults are beating children, and it is no problem for one to beat 10. Even if the surprise attack was successful in the end, it might not be possible to survive the Punisher's dying counterattack, give up the mission, and escape directly from the organization. A series of thoughts flashed continuously. In the end, Belle resisted these dangerous and unacceptable thoughts. After all, the power of his boss, Jin Bing, was not a joke, it was created entirely in blood. What's more, he used to perform the task of dealing with traitors. The whole task process can be described as easy in one sentence. It belongs to the level with many rewards and low difficulty, and it is a task that everyone dreams of. In order to survive, Bell's head frantically operated again, looking for any hope of survival, when he saw countless drug dealers killed and injured in the factory. With a flash of inspiration, I carefully recalled the various requirements of Yu Guang's mission tonight, and compared and verified it with the various conditions of the factory building. After comparing the two, he found a shocking piece of good news. He had completed the minimum requirements, which meant that the death threat from the organization had been removed. Then it also means that the conditions for survival have become very simple. All you need to do is to avoid the pursuit of the perverted Punisher in front of you. As for the gang members who are still fighting, Bell naturally chose to abandon them without hesitation, and it would be best if they were all dead. Although he would be said to be unfavorable in doing things afterwards, he said that he didn't care at all. As long as a person is alive, there is always hope. If a person dies, it is really all over. And after all the squads were killed, it would be easier to find reasons whether it was the addition of personnel or the division of interests. Thinking of this, Bell hid his tracks even deeper. He said that he would stay here forever, and he would never move again until the Punisher left. After this task is over, he is going to apply for a vacation, go to Hawaii and other places to relax. As long as he persists for a while, all kinds of beautiful scenery in life are beckoning. With this belief in survival, Bell gradually calmed down. He said that he couldn't wait to plan his future vacation plans. Bell made up his mind to keep going, but when he saw that the Punisher's route coincided with the hiding place, his whole body was already on the verge of collapse. The journey from hell to heaven and back to hell is so mentally tortured it's literally bullying. As the Punisher gradually approached, cold sweat continued to flow on his forehead. Whether to fight or not to fight, this is an extremely tangled choice, and it is also a choice without a correct answer. Everything depends on one's actual performance. Time is passing by, and Bell, who is physically and mentally exhausted, knows that he cannot continue to procrastinate, and it is time to make a corresponding decision. At the juncture of life and death, the ferocity in his body awakened again. Bell decided to fight again. Isn't he the Punisher? Even the old bastard god is not qualified to take his life. At the same time, he also found an unexpected surprise. George was hidden in a corner 10 meters away on the right. The two looked at each other and smiled, making sneak attack gestures together, and at the same time got what they wanted from each other's smiles. This time, he finally gained some self-confidence. The possibility of a successful sneak attack was greatly increased, and a few strange smiles appeared on his face. He can swear to God that at this time, of course, he wants to work together to fight the Punisher, and he has absolutely no intention of using George as a bait. Bell wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead, adjusted his breathing and, ready to fight at any time, listening to the number of steps the Punisher was getting closer to, and judging the distance between each other. A reminder to myself in my heart is this moment. Bell jumped up and picked up the RPG, pulled the trigger towards the Punisher, and shouted loudly, "George, what are you waiting for?" George in the corner is very aware of Bell's sinister intentions, because he also has the same plan, but he is just a step behind. As the so-called slow step by step, the following routines will be followed one by one, which will make people hard to guard against. The fact was so heart-wrenching that George had no choice but to come out and try his best to cooperate with Bell's offensive, because that loud call had allowed the Punisher to find his hiding place. All said that it is better to act first, and there may be a ray of life. Otherwise this place will definitely be his burial place, and he will end up with no bones left. Jumping out from a pile of stumps and arms, George held 2 guns in his hands, and the bullets with 2 full magazines poured out at the fastest speed, blocking all the next hiding spaces of the Punisher as much as possible. Seeing that George appeared as he expected, Bell finally let go of the worries in his heart, and quickly left the RPG and ran out of the factory building. Now he is extremely eager for George to delay for a few more minutes. After all, when encountering a man-eating tiger, people often don't need to outrun the tiger, they just need to outrun their accomplices, and the current situation is exactly the same. On the other hand, Peter, who witnessed the Punisher being caught between 2 sides, although it is not clear whether the Punisher in this world is the same as he remembers. But compared with the Bell duo on the other side, they are still willing to trust memory and stand on the side of the Punisher. Peter found a suitable position from a high place, and continuously sent strands of spider silk towards the rocket, trying to make as many spider threads and tangle the rocket as possible, planning to throw the rocket outside the factory. I'll go. He still underestimated the impact of the rocket, and was forced to take a few steps forward. When Peter regained his balance, time did not allow the implementation of the original plan, so he had no choice but to choose to throw the rocket upwards. Then there was a loud boom from the roof, and the entire ceiling turned into large and small falling rocks and began to fall on the ground. This time, the stars in the sky were clearly visible to the factory building. Immediately afterwards, the scorching heat caused the surrounding air to expand immediately, and an invisible air shock wave began to sweep across the entire factory building. After the Punisher found out that someone was helping to transfer the rockets, he didn't miss this opportunity. He adjusted his pace in a few small steps to make a predictable move, and avoided George's attack within an inch. Turning his head to look in Bell's direction, the Punisher raised the M16 automatic rifle in his hand and aimed at Bell for precise strafing. Every bullet hit Bell's weakest and most uncomfortable position. Among the bullets all over the sky and the random falling rocks from the ceiling, Bell couldn't dodge all of them even when he was in a state of full concentration. He was hit in many places such as the abdomen and thighs. The abdomen that was barely bandaged before was also due to the violent movement began to bleed profusely. Under the hindrance of these factors, escaping has become a fantasy for Bell, and the gate of the factory building has nothing to do with him in the end. In desperation, he can only return to the factory building to save his life before making plans. The Punisher didn't miss the opportunity to beat the dog in the water. He quickly pressed forward, changed the magazine and continued to shoot, intending to take it down in one fell swoop. Seeing Bell, whose life was hanging by a thread, even though George had the idea of walking away after shooting, he wished that his teammate would die immediately, and even wanted to help speed up Bell's death. But I also know an unavoidable and cruel fact: he can't go, let alone Peter, who jumped out suddenly. Just the Punisher alone needs the cooperation of two people to have a chance of survival. Naturally, Bell knew this truth very well, adjusted his direction and gradually moved closer to George, and he believed that George would definitely rescue him. Because many times of mission cooperation have shown that they are all the same kind of people. They are a group of people who will never give up life easily, and can abandon everything for survival. This is also the reason why Bell chose to gamble just now. After all, if you give it a try, you might be able to escape from death, so why not do it? Even if it fails in the end, there is still George to help guarantee the bottom anyway. In short, I will never suffer a big loss. It's still the same routine as before, the choice to return to George's hands again, whether you want short-term pleasure or future survival. Despite the many unwillingnesses in his heart, George finally made a move. With a pistol, a grenade, and the ceiling falling from the sky from time to time, the chance coincidence between the three completed a wave of perfect cooperation and successfully pushed the Punisher back temporarily. After the person approached, George gave the iron fist of cooperation first, and issued a warning: by the way, Bell, please remember, there will be no next time. Then they pulled Bell up again, and the two quickly retreated behind the many maintenance cars, preparing to use this as a cover to block the Punisher's infallible marksmanship. Huh. Bell leaned against the car and kept adjusting his breathing. He covered the wound on his abdomen with one hand, and tore off the vest with the other hand. With his hands and mouth, he tore the vest into a pile of cloth strips. I tied it firmly to the previous wound, forcibly stopped the bleeding from the wound, and a temporary bandage was completed. As for the bullets inside, he said that he has no time to worry about it, and he will reward himself with a full body maintenance after surviving. The most important thing now is to maintain the existing combat effectiveness, and not lose the big because of small things. After treating the wound, in order to increase the odds of winning, Bell quickly told all the relevant information, regardless of whether it was correct or not. Because there is only one goal, and that is to make sure that George understands his own importance, emphasizing the interests that need cooperation. The little bug from before is still there. He is the one who stopped the rockets. He is far superior to us in terms of strength. In short, we must get rid of them as soon as possible. George didn't even need to turn his eyes to detect Bell's small thoughts and suppress all kinds of bad emotions in his heart. He replied blankly, "Shut up, just listen to my command now. Now your task is to adjust your status as quickly as possible. The Punisher may attack at any time." On the other side, facing the meeting of the two, the Punisher didn't panic at all. He scanned the surrounding environment, took out the remaining smoke bombs from his body and threw them around. Under the cover of spreading smoke, the Punisher approached the two of Bell step by step, because he knew that the person who was most anxious now was not himself, but Bell, who was seriously injured and had a violent temper. The sound was just right during the whole movement, so that the two people behind the bunker could hear clearly, and the sound of footsteps kept provoking that extremely anxious heart. At a distance of less than 20 meters, the Punisher stopped in his tracks, motionless like a rock, looking at the maintenance car that was acting as a cover. For a long time, neither of the confronting parties took action. George is waiting for Bell's state to recover. He doesn't want to be in the best state, at least he must have a certain combat effectiveness. The Punisher is waiting for the ceiling to fall completely, to ensure that there will be no more accidents in this attack, and at the same time waiting for something to ferment. In short, both sides are delaying time, and neither wants to make a rash move. Patience has become the key to this duel. However, according to Peter's observations, it is certain that the outcome of the two sides has already been decided, and it can be seen how the Punisher handles this trick. At this time, Bell looked extremely weak. All the blood on his face was gone, his face was as pale as a piece of white paper, and his mood became more and more irritable. But he was also aware of his own problems, and in order to survive, he eagerly expressed his wishes to George. "George, we must act immediately. I am getting weaker and weaker. If I continue this meaninglessly, I will not be able to sustain it sooner or later." George frowned. He knew that Bell's state was no longer optimistic, but he looked at the Punisher in front of him. In order to calm Bell's emotions, George softly persuaded. "The sight is not clear now, it is not the best time. If we act rashly now, we will only die in vain. Hold on for a while, please believe me." Bell was extremely dissatisfied with this answer, but he was helpless. After all, the position of the main force had changed, and now he could only follow orders. The two fell into silence. George was still watching Punisher's every move very cautiously, and Bell continued to adjust his state. As the time passed by every second, the gradual deterioration of the injury, the situation of approaching death and other factors made Bell's body and mind reach the critical point of collapse. 10 times to savor. Even he has begun to doubt George. In fact, he has already found a way to escape. Just want to avenge the previous bait, deliberately stay here, in order to achieve a purpose. Let him die here. Thinking of this, murderous intent flashed in Bell's eyes, and the idea of killing George first kept lingering in his mind. Soon, the threat of life and death in front of him woke him up, and he had to shake his head to get rid of this undesirable thought as soon as possible, but the seeds of suspicion were buried in his heart. But this strange movement made George see it clearly, and he was also very familiar with such things as murderous intent. When Bell was about to say something again, George, who had never found a breakthrough, also became a little emotionally ups and downs. He yelled angrily, "Shut up, Bell, remember that we are together, and I want to live too, so don't waste your time now, get back on your feet." Perhaps at this moment, George really had no other thoughts and only wanted to survive, but this passage eventually became the last straw that broke the camel's back. The suspicion in Bell's heart was completely pushed to the peak, and the deep voice suddenly became louder. "I said to act immediately. Can you understand these 4 words? Fox squid." Hearing Bell's irrational abuse, George's cheeks twitched slightly. He suppressed the anger in his heart for the hope of survival, and was about to explain. At this moment, the Punisher who was watching from a distance knew that the long-awaited seed had finally blossomed, like an eagle finding its prey, and the time to act had come. The left foot slammed on the ground to complete the transition from extremely quiet to extremely dynamic in an instant, and the ground seemed to start to shake, as if an ancient giant beast traveled through time and space to launch the most ferocious charge, making it difficult for people to have a little resistance. The 20-meter distance was easily crossed by the Punisher at lightning speed, and Bell, who was caught in the dispute, had no time to react at all, and could only watch the blade pass by his throat. The blade easily sliced open the main artery, and the blood vented freely like a volcanic eruption. In the blink of an eye, the ground within 3 meters was covered with blood. Bell, who finally came to his senses, subconsciously opened his mouth to the widest point, looked blankly at the Punisher in front of him, and seemed to want to say something, but in the end he didn't say anything, and just lost consciousness and fell to the ground. And George on the side also retreated immediately, because he knew that the chaotic Bell would not be able to block the knife, and he could already judge Bell's death in advance, which also meant that the cooperation between the two parties collapsed at this moment. Regarding the occurrence of this scene, George said that there is an old saying in the East that is not wrong feng shui turns. This time Bell became the bait for him to escape. George, who had regained hope, ran all the way. The adrenaline in his body was soaring crazily. He had already exerted his speed to the limit, and he had no other thoughts in his mind, only to escape the factory as soon as possible. As for the idea of staying to use this to blackmail the Punisher, George neither wanted nor dared. After all, he lost Bell's fighting power, and the so-called anti-killing was just a joke. And the Punisher on the side was not surprised that Bell could be killed so easily, because everything was planned. Watching George's gradually disappearing figure, the Punisher took out 2 grenades from his waist and threw them towards the ceiling above. At the same time, in order to cover the explosion of the grenade, the magazine was changed continuously, and the bullets were fired frantically. This time, it entered the running heavy machine gun mode. Many bullets seemed to be flying all over the sky aimlessly, but in fact they blocked most of George's next escape directions. The appearance of the gunshots made George dodge subconsciously and irregularly. The bullets passed by. He unexpectedly found that few bullets produced a fatal blow. Could it be? Before the fantasy could be activated, reality had already struck a heavyweight uppercut. Dozens of large ceilings completely blocked the way forward, and expressed to him that this way was impossible. Please replan the route. Recalling the previous series of actions of the Punisher, George immediately understood his intentions. It was the explosion of the grenade that successfully triggered a new round of the sealing. Originally, he planned to think deeply about the new route, but when he turned his head and saw the Punisher rushing quickly, he had to give up this idea for the time being, and adopted the method of taking one step at a time. It was this sense of urgency that made George embark on the road of no return, and even underestimated the application of the Punisher to the combat environment. The seemingly irregular ceiling, after throwing in a large number of bullets, changed its trajectory and almost achieved the effect of pointing to where it fell, becoming a weapon that the Punisher manipulated at will. Coupled with the blockade of bullets all over the sky, from Peter's perspective, George, as an enemy, voluntarily stepped into the death trap carefully prepared by the Punisher step by step. The reappearance of the miracle did not continue, and the Punisher had been waiting for a long time, offering George grenades, stun bombs and other cereal meals. George, caught in the big meal, was devastated and helpless with the arrival of the Punisher. The only thing he could do was to dodge desperately. And the Punisher didn't give a second chance. He turned around ahead of time to lock in a key position, silently waved the knife in his hand, and staged a 7 in and 7 out of George's body. Finally, he slashed George's body with the knife. Neck. George raised his hands tremblingly and pressed hard on his neck, trying to block the wound and keep the last hope, but all these efforts were in vain. His eyes were full of unwillingness. He hated Belle's stupidity and self-importance, and the cooperation between the two could obviously escape. He also blamed himself for not being decisive enough and not stopping the loss in time to leave. Obviously he had a chance. Peter was stunned. Even though he had already guessed that the final winner would be the Punisher before the battle, he did not expect that the gap between the two sides would be so large. In just the blink of an eye, the Punisher can be said to have raised the knife and dropped it, one knife at a child, and the whole process seemed extraordinarily easy. From the beginning to the end, the duo of Belle and George did not form a counterattack at all, only the blind escape was completely defeated, like a blank paper that could be broken with one stab. When Peter came back to his senses, the Punisher was squatting in front of a dying drug dealer, took out a photo from his arms, and asked, "Where is this man? Tell me all his information, as in exchange I can save you." The drug dealer woke up instantly after hearing the question, subconsciously opened his eyes to the maximum and stared at the photo in front of him, opening and closing his mouth and making a weak voice, "He is." But in the end, the drug dealer was not blessed to accept this hope. He was too seriously injured and passed away without even being able to complete a sentence. The Punisher's face changed for the first time, and his hands were unintentionally grasping the photo, and his mood at this time was extraordinarily complicated. Peter felt that the Punisher's mood could be expressed in one sentence, that is, a game successfully reached the final level, but failed due to some irrelevant factors, and it was still a survival game that could not be loaded. Just as the Punisher was deep in thought, he didn't realize that there was actually an audience beside him. This person was the extremely arrogant Garcia before. Perhaps violent people will always attract each other. During the negotiations, the violent Garcia was successfully selected by the more vicious Belle and became the first target to deter drug dealers. And after leeway passed, the target also became a piece of waste, no longer having any value, so Garcia was naturally treated in this way. The gangsters just don't want to waste a bullet on him, and the final solution is to drag him to the other corner and let him die. However, because of this, in the following rapid changes, although Garcia was injured in many places and bled profusely, he only fell into a half-conscious state, and finally survived the melee by luck. In short, compared with the group of drug dealers who were completely down, Garcia can barely be called a blessing in disguise, and it also allowed him to survive until the end of the battle to hear the deal. At this moment, Garcia suddenly cheered up, a few smiles appeared on his stiff face, he bit off his tongue hard, and let the pain make his body wake up as soon as possible, because this was his last chance to be rescued. Under the longing for life, his body seemed to regain strength. Garcia stretched out his hands hard, and it seemed that all the strength in his body had been exhausted by this one movement. That's right. Garcia grasped this last hope. He firmly grasped the Punisher's trousers, licked his lips and said tremblingly, "No, I know everything about him, I can tell you everything. Please, you save me." After saying this, his hands finally fell to the ground powerlessly. This time Garcia passed out completely, but he also put his fate on the gambling table again, gaining a chance for himself to survive. As for the Punisher of Party A, his choice is to accept this deal. Although he doesn't know whether it is true or not, he is willing to give this information a try. The Punisher began to check Garcia's injuries and found that the situation was not optimistic. Garcia had many large and small wounds on his body, the most fatal of which was a gunshot wound on his thigh. Visually, it should be that the best treatment time has been missed. At this time, it has entered multiple states such as hemorrhage and inflammation, which in turn leads to the continuous deterioration of other wounds on the body. In short, the injury is better than that of the previous drug dealer, but if there is a delay and the wound is not treated effectively, it is no surprise that this sudden insider will go to hell to report to Satan. After checking here, the Punisher couldn't help feeling a headache, because the transport he came here was borrowed from a car thief on the way, and there was no corresponding medicine on it, not even the most basic daily first aid kit. Peter, who was looking for someone at the side, saw the Punisher's actions clearly, and he realized that the injured should be of great significance to the Punisher. With such a dangerous world, Peter cautiously came to the Punisher with the idea that one more friend would also have one more way out. A suggestion was made. "Hello, maybe I can help you. I can temporarily stop the bleeding, and there is a first aid kit in the car, which should slow down his death time to the greatest extent. What do you think?" This caught the attention of the Punisher. He glanced at Peter. Based on years of experience and previous observations, he, like Bullseye, roughly estimated Peter's true identity. In a relatively naive mental state, it is likely that he is a student who has not yet left the society. I also think of Peter's timely help before and the fact that there is indeed such a need now. The Punisher made a low voice and said, "Thank you for your help. I'm going to pack some things. Let's get out of here as soon as possible." Hearing the answer in agreement, Peter immediately threw the blue flame spider silk to the unconscious Garcia, and the spider silk wrapped around the wound, starting to slowly stop the bleeding. "Exactly, I'm going to find someone too." In fact, to be honest, when he started searching, Peter had already planned to fail the mission. After all, the scene he saw before was Frank Amick fighting alone in the chaotic factory. But the reality seemed to be very keen on slapping faces, and he was the first to shout out the word, "No," and soon he found Frank Amick in the corner beside him. After the hail of bullets in the melee, Frank Amick was only stunned by the aftermath of the grenade. Generally speaking, there was no serious problem with the whole person, just a minor injury. Without Peter's intervention, Frank Amick should have retired once again, and continued to happy in this world, and even his underworld career could be improved to a higher level. Sure enough, existences like Scourge's usually live long, and it also shows that it is really difficult to be a good person in this world. While Peter was lamenting Frank Amick's European luck, Mindy and Big Daddy were rushing towards the factory on the other side. It turned out that after the two men treated their wounds, they didn't see Peter's figure, and the gunfire in the direction of the factory building gradually subsided. And the communication equipment failed to get in touch with Peter. The two really couldn't let go of their worries and decided to go back to the factory to check the situation. But for the implementation of this decision, Mindy and Big Daddy each have different views, and the two have a fierce quarrel. Big Daddy thinks that there is no need for Mindy to join in the next action. The most important thing for Mindy now is to go home to treat the wound and wait for their return at home. But Mindy doesn't think so. She thinks that she is very necessary to join it, and is an indispensable member of the operation, but thinks that old bones like Big Daddy should go home to recuperate quickly. After some disputes, although both of them were thinking of each other, but the same stubborn character led to the result that neither could persuade the other. In the end, in order not to waste time, the father and daughter took a step back and made promises to each other, never act impulsively, and put their own safety first when acting. Silence became the main theme of the return journey this time. Neither the father nor the daughter made a sound, because they both knew each other's character and knew that the other was also rushing back with the determination to die. Gradually approaching the factory building, Mindy found that the surrounding area has become extremely quiet, and the uneasiness in his heart is increasing. Could it be that Peter has already? With such uneasiness in mind, Mindy and Big Daddy stepped into the factory building, and the first scene they saw was a messy scene and Peter and the Punisher who were about to leave. Extremely surprised, Mindy pulled Peter to his side, and asked a series of questions softly. "Are you okay? What happened here? Who is the uncle standing next to you?" Peter waved his hand and responded, "Mindy, let's get out of here first. I can't tell for a while. I'll talk to you slowly when I get in the car." Then he turned around and raised the person in his hand to claim credit for Big Daddy. "Uncle Damon, who do you think this person is?" Big Daddy's eyes moved accordingly, his eyes turned red instantly, and his body couldn't help approaching. "Frank Amick, how could I forget his face?" Peter handed the man over, and then explained the situation. "He's not dead yet, he's just temporarily unconscious. He's yours now, Uncle Damon." Big Daddy took over the enemy who had made him gnash his teeth, and bowed deeply to Peter. "Thank you. Don't need to do this, Uncle Damon. Hurry up and take us back to the car. There are seriously injured people. This one needs the first aid kit on the car." Peter quickly stepped aside, pointing at Garcia behind the Punisher. The Big Daddy nodded to put away the emotions that were about to get out of control, and led the people to quickly leave the factory full of corpses and head for the cars parked in the distance. On the way, in order to cope with the situation that may happen next, Peter told all the communication during Bell's negotiation and the information that Bullseye escaped halfway. The Punisher and Big Daddy figured it out together, and after a while they understood why hundreds of people fought a small-scale war in the factory tonight, but no one outside came to bother them, as if they didn't notice it at all. It should be Jin and use the charm of money to open up the relationship, suppress the speed of the nearby police, and leave enough time for the Bell team. The departure of Bullseye will definitely bring the latest information to Jin Bin. As the boss, he will also adapt to the situation and formulate corresponding countermeasures. In order to get a better prediction result, Big Daddy began to think about this issue from Jin Bing's perspective. The drug dealers entered into a big melee, and the third-party forces made a strong appearance. The collision of multiple forces would inevitably lead to countless casualties. However, he wanted to teach the third-party forces that suddenly appeared in the factory a lesson. The best countermeasure was undoubtedly to notify the police to dispatch immediately, surround the factory in all aspects, and enter the factory openly to arrest personnel. At this point in the analysis, Peter and his team quickened their pace, because time waits for no one, and Bullseye has been away from the factory for a while. If Jin Bin and the police react quickly enough, maybe the police car has arrived nearby and is carrying out the inspection. Surrounded. Sure enough, all this did not go beyond everyone's predictions. As soon as he got back to the car, Peter heard the sound of intensive police cars traveling in the distance. When Peter said this, the Punisher immediately threw Garcia behind him, and said, "Help me bandage his wound, let me drive the car, I am more familiar with the terrain around here than you." Under the skillful driving of the Punisher, the car began to turn around. In order not to attract the attention of the police cars, it specially selected some relatively hidden streets to drive. There were no dangers along the way. Under the Punisher's superb driving skills, everyone successfully broke through the defense line set up by the police, just like a group of ghosts shuttling through the darkness, leaving no trace of clues for the police to find. To the point of no trace. After a long time, the Punisher stopped the car in a hidden corner, and after observing the surrounding environment, he said, "Everyone, let's separate when we get here. You will go straight along this road for about 1 kilometer and you will be on the right. Then turn back to the main road." After thinking for a while, he took out a note from his body, picked up the pen that came along halfway, wrote down the relevant information, and put the note on the passenger seat. Turning to Peter, he said, "My phone is on it. If you need help, you can come to this place to find me at any time." After speaking, he carried the bandaged mummy on his back. Garcia got off the car, parted ways with Peter and the others, and went back to their respective homes. In the car, for the note placed on the passenger seat, Peter's choice is of course to accept it and keep it safe. This is a promise from Frank the Punisher. Besides, the reason why he offered to help just now is to bet on the arrival of this moment and establish a good relationship with the Punisher. The Big Daddy returned to the driving seat, looking at the back of the Punisher leaving. His face was extremely solemn, and he entered the mode of thinking. After a while, he said, "Peter, Mindy, try not to get in touch with this person. If it is absolutely necessary, then you must be more careful. I can feel that this person is very dangerous." Peter wasn't surprised that Big Daddy noticed the danger on the Punisher. After all, he was a police officer who was about to become the chief. Although Big Daddy can no longer keep up with the development of combat power in the new era, he has always been at the forefront in terms of eyesight. After all, this ability is given by all kinds of tribulations in life, and it will not be so simply forgotten with the passage of time. Peter nodded to express his agreement with Big Daddy's point of view, and at the same time expressed his own opinion, but you don't need to be too sensitive, just get along like ordinary people. Seeing that this topic still intends to continue, Mindy, who forcibly held back her silence in the factory building, was already full of curiosity at this time, and no one could stop her from asking the next question. With the addition of desire in his heart, his combat power has soared, and he quickly decided on the strategy of dividing the army into 2 groups. First, he patted Peter's thigh with a palm to attract attention, thereby interrupting the conversation between the two of them. Then stretched his body to the driver's seat, and launched a daughter-like eye attack on the Big Daddy. "Dad, didn't you just say that you want to understand what happened after that?" Facing Mindy's rare eye contact, the old father undoubtedly chose the daughter's side and gave a beautiful assist. He echoed, "Indeed, I'm also very curious about what happened next. Peter, please tell us in detail." After getting the desired answer, Mindy immediately connected and asked questions to complete the final field control. "Now back to the topic. Peter told me quickly, what happened in the factory after we left? How did it develop to that scene?" "Mindy, you're too impatient. It looks like this thigh is red, and you're going to seriously hurt me. I can't speak. Peter teased while lying in a paralyzed position. Mindy curled her lips and said loudly, "Stop pretending, you are still so childish at such a young age, and still playing this trick. I didn't use much force, so hurry up and say it." "Mindy, I'm just a child. How can I say I'm naive? Don't come here, itchy. I say it's okay. Let go quickly." In the following journey, Peter told the curious father and daughter about the ins and outs of the factory building tonight, starting from the initial infiltration. After some narration, Mindy expressed regret for missing the big show, and kept asking new questions to Peter, while Big Daddy fell into deep thought. If all the drug dealers Peter mentioned are dead, then the group of people behind them probably won't be able to sleep tonight. This chaotic opening ceremony has already begun, and no one will stop it, and there is a high probability that they will go speed up the arrival of chaos. A few smiles flashed in his eyes, and he expressed his opinion. At the same time, Big Daddy also stopped the car at the intersection, turned around and said, "Peter, there is a bus stop ahead. You can take the bus home first, and leave the rest to me and Mindy." Peter subconsciously glanced at Mindy. He instantly understood the deep meaning behind Big Daddy's proposal. It is estimated that the next scene of dealing with the enemy will be extremely violent. It is not appropriate for non-participants to stay at the scene to avoid accidents. But seeing the father and daughter who were covered in injuries at this time, uneasy thoughts still prevailed in their minds. Peter whispered a suggestion, "Just you and Mindy. How about I stay and contribute?" Before Big Daddy could speak, Mindy rolled his eyes first, as a counterattack to Peter's peeking question. Then he said, "Don't worry, Peter, you little rookie, you still have to have some confidence in me and Dad. We will deal with that bastard. Hurry up, or you will miss the last bus, and you will have to run back by yourself." Hearing this, Peter couldn't continue persuading. After all, Big Daddy was still thinking about him. So he stood up and shot a large amount of spider silk at the comatose drug lord Frank Amick to provide another insurance for their next actions. Peter, who was about to get out of the car, saw Mindy's confident and arrogant appearance. He felt that his body was being seduced by the devil, so he couldn't help stretching out his hands and rubbing Mindy's dog's head, angrily. "Peter, you're a rookie. How dare you touch my hair?" Mindy became irritable in an instant, and didn't even care about tidying up her hair. She threw herself at Peter, ready to give this daring recidivist an unforgettable blow. Peter, who took advantage of it, naturally wouldn't give Mindy a chance to fight back. He immediately turned around and opened the door and slipped away. The whole process was smooth, and said with a smile, "Ha ha ha, if I can't get a call, then I'll go first. Good night everyone." The continuous fighting made Peter fall asleep as soon as he got home, and he barely woke up until noon, mainly because he was too hungry, and the hunger in his body had broken through the blockade of drowsiness. Peter struggled to break the seal from the bed, obeyed the call deep in his heart, and went downstairs to offer a big meal to his body after a night of fighting. Came to the bathroom like a sleepwalker, and did a simple wash before fully waking up. After looking around at home, he realized that only he, a student on summer vacation, was left, and Uncle Ben and the others had already gone to work. And the Big Daddy should have successfully killed the enemy, ending this year's long battle of revenge. As for why Peter would know. Of course, it was because Peter was born a master who could pinch and count. In fact, the system sent a reminder that the task was completed at around 8 o'clock this morning, but Peter was in a deep sleep and didn't hear it at all. He only saw this part of the message after washing up. The host has completed the task, Big Daddy's Revenge, completed it within 12 hours, and won a lottery draw for A-level abilities, starting to trigger the superposition effect of the hero event. Reminder. If the host refuses, please deal with it as soon as possible. Stacking has started. The host can decide whether to receive it in the next task reward. Due to the emergence of this information, Peter carefully checked the rules for receiving rewards, but he did not expect the system to come up with such a unique set of gameplay. He decisively questioned the system. "Don't you know that 8 o'clock is not considered morning for young people? This is a serious dereliction of duty." Hearing the host's shameless questioning, the system said that it was fearless and would not be disturbed at all. It fully expressed that it was up to him, and we will come back to see his style of doing things in a few years. The system didn't cooperate to respond, and Peter couldn't continue to sing a one-man show alone. As for the A-level ability, I am not tempted at all. There is nothing wrong with it. The current ability in the body still needs to be further developed, and it is not conducive to the addition of new abilities. Picking up lunch, I came to the computer, ready to look up some information, and by the way, take a look at the next direction of the factory incident last night and the impact it caused. After all, the scene in the factory building last night was particularly powerful, and it was not comparable to the level of the small fights before. The shocking sound probably resounded throughout the entire Brooklyn area, and even half of the city at that time. The number of bullet casings that can be collected in the factory alone is an astonishing number, and the number of exclusive battlefield weapons such as grenades and shock bombs has reached at least 3 digits. After that, there are nearly 10 rounds of RPG in full bloom in the factory, with. At the same time, the number of deaths in the factory was close to hundreds of people, not to mention that most of them were the main persons in charge of the drug trafficking network, and they were all rich or expensive. After last night, the factory building will definitely cause a huge shock in the whole city, and even the attention of the whole country will be attracted to it. After all, such a large-scale vicious incident is completely impossible to suppress with the power of a single district, not to mention that there is a group of journalists whose life is news. They are a special group, and they have never been vegetarians. In order to pursue more exciting news, they can often exert energy that is different from ordinary people. And this factory incident is undoubtedly their favorite type. It is very easy to report more with less work, and it is absolutely impossible to let it go without getting enough benefits. The combination of these factors will inevitably lead to a result, that is, this factory incident will overwhelm the crowd and make the headlines today. Sure enough, there were no accidents. Peter glanced at it, and today, no matter whether it was on the major TV channels or on the internet platform, the headlines were all about last night's factory incident. Scrolling down the mouse, he saw a series of video titles that he was familiar with. Many men did such a thing in the middle of the night. Explore the story behind the multiplayer sports incident in the auto repair factory. His brain was full of black lines, his eyes could no longer be controlled, and he could only complain. This is full of shocking body style, in fact. It seems that no matter which world you are in, this is a reporter who has no teacher. Skills that are familiar to me. It even makes me feel a little bit of intimacy. There may be something wrong with my brain. Although he was a little curious about what was behind this part of the demons and ghosts, it would be better to find something serious about this incident. After some searching, Peter chose the official news report. Hi everyone, I'm Emily and welcome to the audience. I'm in an auto repair shop in Brooklyn right now, and there was a major shooting there between 11 and 12 late last night. Incident, and the factory building behind me was the scene of the shooting. According to the information released by the police so far, hundreds of people have participated in the shooting incident, and hundreds of people fought in the factory building behind them. Let's go in and find out what happened here. The camera began to shift, and the factory building that had been reduced to ruins appeared on the screen, with bullet casings and solidified blood everywhere on the ground. After more than 2 hours of in-depth investigation, the police not only found thousands of shell casings left behind at the scene, but also detected traces of explosions such as grenades and PGRs. This place is simply a hell on earth. At the same time, in the latest information released by the police, the death toll of this incident has been released. The high number is saddening. Now 98 people have died, and no survivors have been found yet. The main reason for the shooting has not yet been found, but the identities of several dead people at the scene have been confirmed by the police. Among the dead are rich men and wanted drug dealers. In this shooting incident, what kind of role did they play, and whether there were other strange things, all of this needs further investigation by the police. In order to solve some of the confusion in everyone's minds, today our program specially invited experts to come to the scene to explain the situation on the spot for everyone. Seeing this, Peter turned off the video, because there is no need to listen to the next expert explanation. It will only waste his time and energy, and even if he is not paying attention, he will be overwhelmed by their illogical guesses and brought into the deep pit and unable to get out. I continued to search but unexpectedly found a good piece of information. In just 6 hours, several unknown forces suddenly appeared on the internet, and they all spread various news to the outside world in a tacit understanding. In particular, Jin Bing is the man behind this incident, and his purpose is to monopolize the drug market by himself and become the only existence in this industry. This type of news was passed on in an orderly manner, and it was also very realistic. From this, Peter can roughly infer that some forces are eyeing Jin Bing, and want to use this incident as a springboard to enter the drug market, stepping on Jin Bing's head to snatch more benefits. Therefore, it is estimated that Jin Bing's revenge will be greatly delayed. Compared with money, Peter and his party are small shrimps, which are not worth mentioning at all. What Peter still needs to pay attention to now is that the police did not find any survivors. He clearly remembered that in the process of searching for Frank Amick, he still noticed the breath of life of several drug dealers, but he was so anxious to leave the factory that he ignored them. There are 2 predicted situations for this. The first one is that the remaining drug dealers wake up and leave the factory by themselves. This is the best, which shows that everything is fine. If it is the second type, it means that they may be in big trouble. The Punisher is not the deepest hidden hunter, and there are still a group of people who have been lurking in the factory to watch the battle. It's just that they continued to hide for some reason, and before the police arrived, they entered the factory to harvest heads to their heart's content. After thinking about it for a while, Peter put down the phone he was going to make. It's better not to disturb Big Daddy because of a momentary speculation. These few days are the best time in his life. He whispered. Forget it, let it be, it hurts my head just thinking about it. But I really have to keep a low profile recently. Turn off the computer. Pick up the milk carefully prepared by Aunt May from the table, drink it up in one gulp, and lean back lazily on the sofa. After a while, Peter remembered that it was time to check last night's harvest. When he saw the reputation value displayed in the system, the smile on his face was completely uncontrollable. Overnight, the prestige value soared to a number that was unimaginable. And the current trend is still on the rise. If there is no accident, the final harvest will be hundreds of times higher. Roughly estimate a wave, at least 1 or 2 months can be tossed in the virtual training room. Even the most advanced package is not a problem. Now please call him a local tyrant. As for the power of the police, Peter no longer cares about it. The angle of the police's strength has gradually fallen into chaos. Clue. Of course, we can't blame the police too much for their inaction and ineffectiveness. The main reason is that there are too many partners behind them who can hinder them. The starting points of the two parties are different. The police want to end the case as soon as possible, while the partners want to use this to do things, such as attacking hostile forces, gaining more benefits for themselves, and even wanting to wipe out the enemy. After all, they won't hurt their bones if they try, but once they succeed, they will get rich and powerful interests. It is the existence of this kind of concept that caused the turmoil at this time, and it also made Peter more convinced of his prediction. Among them, the news media is undoubtedly an extremely vigorous main force. Due to the high popularity of this incident, people are willing to spend money to watch it and become a consumer. As a result, all the media have become crazy, and they are all concerned about this factory incident. Much coverage. Some tabloids are also aware of their own disadvantages. In order to obtain more market benefits, they decided to take a slanted path. They chose to start with the identity of the deceased and openly fired at the police, questioning the existence of an exchange of interests between the police and drug dealers. At the same time, there are a lot of talents, and the articles written are more exciting than the last, and the plot and logic are all well-founded, so that even the gangster can't refute it for the time being. Accurately grasping the explosive point of the market has made many people who don't know the truth watch it with gusto and say it happily, which in turn makes the people willing to open their wallets to buy and buy. With the support of a large number of people who eat melons, the sales of this type of tabloid naturally increased by leaps and bounds, occupying half of the market, and the rest of the industry saw such a successful result, and they were all extremely jealous. This is simply money falling all over the floor. Just bend down a little, and the successful cases are all in front of you. They want to increase their value, raise their salary, become a CEO, and marry Bai Fumei. In the face of these 4 goals, there is no need to entangle at all. The rest of the media immediately followed up and imitated, and everyone was publishing frantically. After all, the market is so big. The soup is probably not good enough. All of a sudden, reports of this kind of conspiracy theory became popular among the citizens, and even if the police wanted to curb the source, they couldn't do anything, and they were completely overwhelmed. With the outrage and the help of a group of caring people, the police had no choice but to hold an emergency press conference half an hour ago. They have expressed their attitude to the public. They will do their best to investigate this case, and strictly investigate the relationship between the police and drug dealers, and will never let any bad guy go. For such a strong announcement by the police, Peter of course raised his hands and feet to express his support. After all, fighting crime is everyone's responsibility. Inspiration suddenly flashed through his head, and Peter decided to send a text message to Big Daddy later, asking Big Daddy to sort out the materials at hand as soon as possible, and hand them over to the police one by one. In this way, the role of the information can be brought into full play, and the officials on the relationship network can enjoy the iron fist of the law. At the same time, on the other side of the city, Jin Bin, as the main force involved in the factory incident, also paid close attention to this incident. He flipped through the documents in his hand, while asking, "How far has the result of the factory building last night been realized? Is it possible for Bell to be alive? Where is Bullseye?" The blonde female secretary on the side adjusted her glasses and replied, "Boss, Bell and George and the 50-man team they led were all killed. Last night's plan was barely a success, and now the drug market has completely opened the door to us. According to the information collected so far, it is very likely that the lunatic Punisher intervened, and there is also a Spider-Boy who appeared recently. As for Mr. Bullseye, the subordinates have not received any news from him for the time being." After listening to the blonde female secretary, Jin Bin knocked on the table and said, "Daredevil from Hell's Kitchen, the Punisher from the gangsters, and now there is another Spider Kid. The world really doesn't lack these innocent people. You idiot, who thinks he has some ability and wants to meddle in other people's business, he really doesn't know what to do, don't you think so? Faced with Jin Bing's question, the blonde female secretary chose to be silent. She also knew that this sentence was not a question, but a self-answer, and it was obviously not something she could answer. By learning from the death experiences of many predecessors and drawing on their valuable experience, she always remembers the first principle she established after entering the company: talk less and do more. Without waiting for the secretary's answer, Jin returned his attention to the documents in his hand. He found something interesting, and a smile kept appearing on his face, eventually forming a burst of wild laughter. The blonde female secretary was still standing quietly aside. Even though her heart was constantly trembling, she still resisted to stay still. Glancing at the behavior of the blonde female secretary, Jin didn't have any extra interest, and directly ordered, "Go to the marketing department and prepare to meet the challenge of the wolves. After a week, I want only one voice left in the market. Go out." "Yes, boss." After walking out of the office for a while, the blonde female secretary let out a sigh of relief. She knew that she had barely passed the test, and a better life would be tomorrow. After the police press conference, the major criminal groups also seemed to realize that the time for hunting had come. All of a sudden, the situation in New York suddenly changed, and it entered a state where you sing and I come on stage, and started a crazy fight for profit. And Peter is still enjoying the rare time at home, lying on the sofa paralyzed by GEU, holding hot instant noodles in his hands, drinking iced happy water from Fat House, and watching high-quality movies. Please give him this kind of life first come 100 years. However, when Peter got up to exercise his muscles and bones, he saw the calendar hanging on the wall. For some reason, his brain suddenly entered a state of contemplation, and he always felt that he had forgotten an important thing somewhere. This strange feeling gradually aroused Peter's curiosity, and in the end he had to suspend this precious time of watching dramas. Thinking hard but still not getting the right answer is like being one step away from the finish line in a long-distance race, but you just can't cross it. In desperation, Peter reached out and took the calendar in front of him, carefully observed the date on it, and prepared to conduct a one-on-one analysis and comparison. After several searches, Peter's mind finally turned around. The reason why he couldn't come up with the answer just now was because he lacked a key piece of information: the profession of being a student. And if there is no miscalculation of the date, today should be the last day of the holiday, and school will start tomorrow. Feelings of embarrassment and gratitude appeared at the same time. If he hadn't seen the calendar today, Peter would still be lying at home tomorrow. At the same time, the wonderful life of not leaving the door of the house is about to be declared over after only 2 days of experience. For this point, Peter is even more difficult to accept. Looking back on the experience of the past month, the more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that he has lost a lot. This month, eating, drinking and having fun has not been completed. After a long time, Peter, who was relieved, also accepted the reality. He decided to get ready to go back to school as soon as possible. On the last night, he wanted to play to his heart's content, and he was going to go out and wander around the world. Peter immediately put the calendar back to its original place, sat back on the sofa, and took out the long-sealed peerless weapon from the desk: blank paper and pen. As the saying goes, a good memory is not as good as a bad pen. Write down the items that you need to bring back to school on the note one by one, and prepare to do it all at once. As the mind enters the memory storm, another part of the memory emerges from the depths. This time, Peter's expression gradually lost control, and he couldn't keep calm anymore. The Fat House happy water he was drinking suddenly felt less sweet, and he jumped up from the sofa in an instant and went straight to the room. In the room, I saw Peter lying on the edge of the bed with his hands outstretched looking for something. His back that seemed to be trembling would give people a very sad first impression. When a school bag was dragged out from under the bed, Peter was completely desperate. He remembered that it was the time when he had just acquired the ability. He went to fight amateur black boxing to make money. Kicked the school bag under the bed, ready to wait for the victory to return before finishing. The result is the current situation. The big school bag in front of him is full of various homework that he has not completed, including writing papers on several major projects. As for the number of articles, Peter said that he did not know, and he did not want to know. God, why did he only remember it at this time? There is only 1 day left. The cell phone rang, which was the reminder alarm clock that Peter had set before. It's 6 p.m. New York time. I wish you a pleasant meal. Then Peter re-estimated the time. It's over. There is only 1 night left. Really, you are committing crimes. Cough cough. Reject the drama and return to the topic. Assuming that the school bag under the bed was found earlier, whether this situation can be solved, Peter's shaking heart has already given the answer, but he will not admit it, so now this situation must be God's mistake. Facing the big school bag, Peter's expression said it all. He couldn't believe it was real, and he wanted to reject this surprise fact. Staring fixedly at the school bag in front of him, his brain has begun to let go of his mind. Various methods of destroying the school bag have emerged in his mind, and he is even thinking about the feasibility of buying a husky to save the scene. In the end, Peter, who had been thinking for a long time, calmed down. It has become an established fact that this big bag of homework has not been completed, which cannot be changed by anyone, especially Peter himself. Resigned to fate, isn't it just a big bag of homework? Peter said. Have you guys heard of any classic legend homework? Give me a pair of hands and a pen. One more night, and tomorrow morning a miracle will happen here. Peter gave himself enough confidence and made an oath. He wouldn't sleep until he finished writing. He wants to set an example for the world to see what is called a miracle reappearance, and a dreamlike miracle is about to set sail. In the evening, Peter, who was catching up with his homework, was naturally not qualified to wander the world, and his deafness became his label. So he didn't know that the impact of the factory incident had just begun, and a new storm was about to sweep across New York City. It's poisonous. I even dreamed that I went back to my youth and became a student again. I still frantically made up homework in the middle of the night. The picture is too real. Peter struggled to get up from the bed, turned off the alarm clock in his phone, and wiped his hands. Wiped the cold sweat that didn't exist on his forehead. It's just that when he saw the pile of homework in front of the desk, his whole body immediately became refreshed, and the relevant memories were re-uploaded into his brain, as if what he just said was true. And last night he uttered wild words to challenge the fantastic legend, but his face was slapped. Although Peter persisted until 3 o'clock in the morning, his body finally defeated his consciousness, and instinctively he obeyed the call of drowsiness and went to bed quietly. At the same time, last night's experience also proved to Peter that it is often said that people can do anything when they are in a hurry, but for math problems, once he can't do it, he really can't do it, no matter how anxious the person is. And the particularly obvious traces of saliva on the digital homework book are the best proof, as if they are also telling about Peter's many unforgivable crimes last night. Peter, get up quickly. Today is your first day back to school, don't be late. Uncle Ben knocked on the door and said. This voice brought Peter back to reality. I see, Uncle Ben. Peter has nothing to do with this pile of homework, and now he has to go to school. The abbreviation is that a dead pig is not afraid of boiling water. He is mentally prepared to bear the consequences. So what? After entering the bathroom to wash his body briefly, and then went back to tidy up the room, and stuffed the items needed for returning to school last night into his school bag, Peter realized that time was running out and rushed downstairs immediately. Good morning, Aunt May. Good morning, Peter, it's time to have breakfast. Have you been busy for the past few days? You look very tired. Come and drink some fresh milk. I specially prepared it for you to recharge your spirits. Aunt May deliberately moved the milk to Peter. Thank you, Aunt May. There's been some trouble recently, but it's almost done. I don't need the milk. The bus is almost at the stop, so I'll start first. Peter grabbed a few pieces of bread and ran out. There's no need to be in such a hurry. After drinking the milk, we still have to catch the bus. Before Aunt May finished speaking, Peter had already run out of the house. Aunt May shook her head helplessly. Uncle Ben got the coat from the room and walked downstairs but found that Peter was still not downstairs, so he asked, May, did Peter go to school, or didn't he go downstairs? Going to school, the child just took a piece of bread and ran away, and didn't even have time to drink milk. Aunt May worried as she looked at the warm milk on the table. Uncle Ben picked up the newspaper and sat next to Aunt May, consolingly said while reading, Don't worry, it's normal for Peter's age, not to mention that it doesn't happen once or twice. If you don't eat breakfast, it's easy to hurt your stomach. He's still so young. Are you ashamed to say that you were a classic case? When you were young, you were like. Aunt May shifted her gaze to Uncle Ben and sighed. Realizing that his wife's grievances were about to involve him, Uncle Ben quickly put down the newspaper, changed the subject, and said, Okay, hasn't Peter's body been getting stronger and stronger in the past month? I just happened to be a little thirsty, so I took Peter's give me milk. On the other side, Peter, who hurriedly set off without even eating breakfast, found another difficulty when he arrived at the station. The bus leading to the school was actually crowded with people. Hesitation welled up in my heart, but thinking of the lack of time, I could only bite the bullet and rush up. Relying on his super high control over his body, Peter managed to get away from the crowd, rushed onto the bus and got a seat at the first stop. But new challenges also emerged. Because of Peter, who has a deeper sense of smell, there are countless smells that can be smelled in this sealed small compartment, and all kinds of smells are indescribable. With no choice left, Peter quickly lowered his breathing rate, turned into a basalt of 10,000 years, and opened the breath-holding record that could challenge the Guinness level by the way. Immediately afterwards, after more than half an hour of swaying movement in the car, the bus finally reached its destination, Empire State University. Huh, huh, huh. There are really all kinds of smells on this bus in the morning. I will definitely not ride next time. If I come a few more times, I will pass out on the bus. It seems that I will buy a motorcycle. Just do it. After getting off the car, Peter immediately made a decision to buy a new travel tool. Although Mindy had mentioned this proposal before, he felt that it might not be very useful, so he didn't make up his mind. Looking at the magnificent school gate in front of him and the time on the watch, Peter was about to breathe a sigh of relief when a new round of questions arose. Where is the classroom? I remember which building it came from. The memory told Peter that this was a sad story, just as the student probably remembered the answer to the question given by the teacher before, but clearly remembered that he did not listen carefully. The sadness of the two is the same. After repeated deep thinking, he could not recall the specific location of the classroom. Just when Peter gave up on himself and planned to ask for leave and go home to rest, God gave him some hope. A number of girls came from a distance, talking and laughing. Peter, who was watching left and right, with his keen eyes, saw clearly at a glance that the book held in the arms of one of the girls was the class he was going to attend next. Peter fixed his eyes and saw that the girl was about 1.7 meters tall. She was dressed in simple casual women's clothing to show off her perfect figure. The long flowing golden hair and the books in her arms made the whole person's temperament even more impressive. Leap forward sublimation can be said to be a goddess-level existence that can kill both men and women. And that pretty face also made Peter feel a little familiar, and soon a name corresponding to it appeared in his mind, and the girl holding the book was Gwen Stacy. She was a classmate, and one of the few girls in Peter's class who could talk. Thinking of this, I have to mention Peter's situation in the class at this time. He was completely isolated. He didn't even know all the classmates in the same class during the whole freshman year. And Peter in high school can be summed up in one sentence: a nerdy academic bully, coupled with the external image of a thin body, has always led to some inexplicable bullying in the class. When asked about the reasons for beating someone, they were even more varied. To summarize and classify, most of them have no conflict with Peter at all, it is purely a follow-up behavior. But they also don't think they have any problems. Instead, they agree that the skinny nerds are bullying, so why are there so many? Peter's situation did not get better in the class until he went to college, but the good times didn't last long. Not 3 months after the start of school, a high school classmate, Thompson, transferred to Peter's class for some reason superior. In this way, Peter and Thompson became classmates again, which is simply a bad relationship. So it is Thompson's credit that Peter was designated by the isolated environment. Back to the topic, in fact, in a certain parallel universe, Gwen Stacy also gained the ability to be a spider, known as Ghost Spider-Man. So in today's world of countless superheroes, Peter is not sure whether Gwen Stacy in front of him also has spider abilities. As for her father, George Stacy, a police chief, he is also one of the people that Big Daddy will contact in his upcoming justice operation. So don't ask Peter why he knows the details of Gwen Stacy so well. Of course it is the information sent by Big Daddy before. Let Peter help you think about which one to choose. Can make the data in hand play the biggest role. Seeing the figure that was about to disappear in front of him, Peter resolutely gave up thinking and quickly followed. The first goal now is to follow Gwen Stacy to find the classroom where the class is held. Finally, just before the class bell rang, Peter successfully entered the classroom and found a seat to sit down. Today's first hurdle was passed without any risk. The teacher also entered the classroom according to the time point. Since it was the first time to attend class, after a simple self-introduction and routine roll call, he began to give lectures. In the first 10 minutes, Peter listened with gusto, a sense of freshness came to his face, but he also overestimated his heart that wanted to learn. After 10 minutes, it was another soul experience. Therefore, Peter, who was essentially reduced to a scumbag, under the gradual guidance of the teacher, the whole person seemed to be listening to a lullaby, without any thought of resisting, and soon fell into a dream. Bell, bell, bell. The bell for the end of class rang on time, and the drowsy students at the back of the classroom immediately regained their energy and made a unified movement in the world. All looked up at the teacher neatly. Every time the eyes of a classmate seemed to be full of stories. The teacher on the podium also understood the desire of the students at this time, and did not choose to continue speaking, saying what the students wanted to hear most. Okay, it's time for the end of get out of class. Everyone go back to have a good rest at noon, you still have class in the afternoon. Following this passage, the students in the classroom gradually began to pack their things and left the classroom in groups of 3 and 5. The changes in the surrounding environment also made Peter gradually wake up from his sleep. At this time, a man carrying a school bag gradually approached Peter. Seeing him just waking up, he couldn't help reaching out and patting his shoulder, and shouted, "Peter, long time no see. Where are you going to play this month?" Wake up. Get out of class is over. The familiar voice made Peter look at the other party subconsciously, and yawned in response. Ah, it's Harry, long time no see. Where there is nowhere to go out, I just stayed at home for more than a month. This time, the hidden memories in my mind quickly surfaced on the shore. The handsome guy in front of me is Harry Osborn, the future second generation of the Green Goblin, and also one of the few friends of Peter in school. One is the future heir of the Osborn group, the top rich second generation. The other is just an ordinary nerd, and the other is poor. Two people who are completely impossible to play together in the eyes of outsiders have become best friends in the end. I have to say that things like fate arrangement are really wonderful. Harry continued to complain. I really have you. On the first day of school, you can sleep for a long time. I have seen the teacher staring at you several times. If today is the first day of school, I guess you would have to sleep for a long time. It's over, by the way. How long did you play the game last night? That's not the case, Harry. I was making up my homework yesterday. In order to prove his innocence, Peter took out a lot of evidence from his school bag. He worked hard on his homework all night. Harry looked at the homework on the table, looked at Peter again, looked back and forth several times, and said in surprise, Peter, have you forgotten? We have submitted related works before, and we no longer need to hand in homework. It seems that you were really playing like crazy. I even forgot about this. After hearing this sentence, Peter gradually lost control of his expression. The pain mask was ready, and when he thought of the struggle last night, bursts of sadness kept pouring into his heart like a tide. After listening to Peter's recounting of the tortuous experience last night, Harry couldn't help it this time, and the whole person fell into a state of laughing wildly. Peter remained motionless, staring blankly at the pile of sources of pain on the table last night. But please note that this is not a static picture, but this time the blow is too absurd. No matter how strong the ability to bear it is, it cannot be fully accepted for a while. Harry, who had calmed down, saw Peter, who was still in a daze, and realized that his behavior just now was a bit exaggerated, so he dragged Peter, who was still stuck in autism, out of the classroom. Suppressing a laugh, he comforted. Okay, don't worry about it. In fact, if you think about it from another angle, this will become a super good news. You don't need to make up for this homework anymore. Let's go, I invite you to eat feast. While chatting, the two walked towards the school's cafeteria. Under the temptation of Harry's big meal and the comfort of his own spiritual practice, Peter gradually came out of his autistic state. After arriving at the restaurant, with Harry, the rich second generation, speaking, Peter was not polite. The machete fell directly, and he ordered food for 5 people. Peter, can you finish eating so much? On the first day of school, the principal will come to patrol the restaurant routinely. If you can't finish it, you will be criticized as a waste of food. Tomorrow's school man of the hour probably won't be able to escape. Harry's eyes wandered back and forth between the door and the food on the table. Peter calmly uttered the wild words in the eyes of others. Don't worry, Harry. I've been exercising recently, and I still exercise a lot, so I can still eat this little food. Seeing Peter's self-confidence, Harry wouldn't say anything more. At most he would help him eat more later, and the two began to share interesting stories about their respective summer vacations. But most of it is Harry talking about his experience of traveling around the world. After all, Peter's more than a month is really difficult to share. Do you want to tell Harry which bus in the city is still operating in the early hours of the morning, or which area's gang organization is more fun? Forget it, isn't it good to be a quiet and handsome man? At this moment, Harry seemed to be thinking of something, and asked uncertainly, by the way, Peter, I remember you said last semester that you planned to take the postgraduate entrance examination for the major of biotechnology in this school, right? Ah, I seem to have said it before. What's wrong? The sudden jump in the topic made Peter unable to react for a while, so he could only respond along. After getting a definite answer, Harry directly stated the reason. The project opened by Dr. Connors in the Osborn group needs to recruit a new batch of interns. And this Dr. Connors is a bigwig in the biology major and a well-known alumnus of the school. Every year, there are several places recommended to the school. If you are interested, I will recruit you as an intern this month, so that the success rate of further studies will be greatly improved. If you perform well during the internship, plus a few good words from the doctor on your resume, maybe you can get a full scholarship from the school at that time. Hearing Harry's suggestion, it is impossible for Peter not to be moved, and it is perfect enough to have 1 or 2 such close friends in one's life. Because this suggestion was completely tailor-made for Peter, almost perfectly avoiding all possible difficulties and reducing the risk to a minimum. Compared with his studies, Peter is now more concerned about the next dream age, but he is too embarrassed to directly reject Harry's kindness, so he can only use the method of procrastination first, and then make plans later. Thank you, Harry, but I haven't figured it out yet. I personally feel very entangled. I won't be able to give you an answer for a while. Harry nodded to express his understanding. It's okay. The main thing is that I may not be at school in a few days, so I will let you know in advance so that I don't forget. When you have made a decision, just come and inform me. Harry turned his attention back to the table, and only then did he realize that more than half of the food for 5 people on the table had been wiped out. He looked at Peter's unchanged stomach in surprise. Yes, Peter, your appetite has improved a lot. It seems that you are really exercising. Where are you going next? I drove to school by myself today. If you want to go home and rest, I can send you back now. Peter shrugged his shoulders, saying that trivial matters are not worth mentioning. He stood up from his seat and took out his mobile phone to look at the time. He stretched his muscles and said, if you don't go home, there is still an hour to go to class. It's too troublesome to run back and forth. Let's go back to the classroom, and lie down in the classroom for a while if we are sleepy. After eating and drinking in the dining room, the two walked on the sunny road like old men, and set off for the classroom leisurely. Just halfway there, Harry realized his carelessness and left his school bag in the dining room. He couldn't help but slap his head. Peter, you go back to the classroom alone. The school bag was left in the dining room. I'll go back and get it now. You do not need. Looking at the figure flying away, Peter held back all he wanted to say, and the opening of his mouth was obviously very naive. In fact, when he went to a work-study program last semester, he would usually help deliver it to the classroom when he called. But they ran far away, so naturally they won't catch up, so let's take it as Harry's after-dinner exercise. After all, if he takes a walk after dinner, he will live to 99. He has that potential. Peter continued to go on the road alone, and he didn't know if his luck was too bad today. When he passed the basketball court, the accident happened again. Relying on the prediction of the spider sensor, he clearly sensed that an orange basketball was flying towards him. If it was a month ago, this sudden arrival of basketball would undoubtedly hit the target dot, but now it's different. Peter can dodge easily. However, he also noticed that someone was passing by. If he avoided it, the basketball would definitely rush to the next one. With the idea of doing good things every day, Peter stood up straight and aimed at the basketball. He seized the opportunity and stretched out his hands. It was easier than imagined, and he caught the flying basketball as soon as he knew it. At the same time, the voice of a girl shouting to avoid it sounded beside him. Peter looked up, but he didn't expect that he was still an acquaintance. It was the noble person I met this morning, Gwen Stacy, and the voices just now were made by the girl next to her. Gwen also reacted at this time, looked at the basketball in Peter's hand and instantly understood the development of the matter, and said quickly, "Thank you, Peter, long time no see. Are you injured? Do you need to go to the medical room?" "Long time no see, Gwen, I'm fine." Just as the two sides were communicating friendly, an extremely greasy voice appeared. "I'm sorry, Peter, I slipped my hand just now, can you return the basketball to me?" Following the direction of the sound source, Peter saw the maker of the accident, the captain of the basketball team Thompson, and a group of cronies around him. It turned out that Thompson and his friends decided to create some fresh fun in order to show the charm of men to the juniors watching basketball. Just at this time Peter passed the field, and a group of energetic campus lunatics quickly set their goals. Then there was an accidental basketball, but they didn't expect the development of things to be completely opposite. The target nerd Peter was able to catch the basketball and use it to save the beauty with a hero, and it was Gwen Stacy, a beautiful woman. Of course, a group of people who were trying to watch the fun couldn't hold back. Thompson stepped forward and issued this mocking apology. On the one hand, he wanted to interrupt the conversation between the two, and on the other hand, he wanted to continue the fun by the way. Peter also quickly figured out the ins and outs of the accident. It was obvious that Thompson deliberately slammed the basketball over hard to see himself making a fool of himself. Looking at the group of people in front of him and the basketball in his hands, Peter thought of a sentence. The so-called bold because of ignorance, perverted because of boredom. This group of people in front of him is the best illustration, and it is a combination of both. If you can't solve it all at once, if you don't completely subdue and scare them, and don't give them an unforgettable pain, then you will be harassed by them all the time in your school life. Thinking back to the time when he was bullied before, he was mainly worried about causing trouble to Uncle Ben and the others, so he chose to stay away from them and didn't pay too much attention to these lunatics. But it's different now. I don't need to worry so much anymore. I just need to rely on my body to go up. But also pay attention to the strength. Don't beat people to death on campus, it will make everyone lose face. And Gwen on the side also heard the insincerity of the apology, and also saw the group of people not far away who were laughing. Hypocrisy became the only expression of this apology. Gwen raised her eyebrows. She was prepared to resist this matter in her heart. She stood up and was about to say something, but saw that Peter had already started to act. I saw Peter fasten his horse, and the basketball in his hand flew towards Thompson's people like a sharp arrow. The basketball hit Thompson's big face, and screams and nosebleeds appeared at the same time. Thompson, who was hit hard, never expected this to happen. The nerd who was bullied before dared to fight back. Relying on the anger in his heart, after wiping off the nosebleed, he shouted to his teammates next to him. Let's go together, teach this trash a lesson, and dare to do it. And this group of people is worthy of being called friends of friends. Anyway, none of them rushed over. They were all looking at each other. Their eyes seemed to be talking. Come on. Then why don't you come on? I'll follow you if you go on. Hurry up. With more than a month of experience in fighting crime, Peter did not hesitate or stop. Now that he has made a decision, he should not change it lightly, and he must walk through the path he chose. Continuing to rush forward, Peter rushed into the flock like a long-starved lone wolf, hunting prey at will. 1, 2, 3. This group of rampages on the basketball court, in the final analysis, are just students in essence, a group of brats who have never seen the real world, and they are not the same as the gangsters Peter has encountered in the past month. From the moment the basketball was thrown, within 2 minutes, this unequal battle was over. Although more than a dozen students were lying on the ground and shouting for pain, they were still full of dissatisfaction. The sharp weapon of the mouth never stopped for a moment, and they kept abusing Peter. But this is also in line with Peter's plan. A simple beating is far from enough, and he said. Give each of them an experience of a lifetime. After all, his personal principle is to walk the talk. Peter has prepared a whole set of dream techniques. Everyone has a share, and he is fully capable of getting even rain and dew. At the beginning, in order to achieve quick success in actual combat, Big Daddy specially found a set of unknown techniques. And he was very lucky to be the first customer of Big Daddy. Since then, it has been continuously experimented and improved, and finally achieved the effect of not dying or being injured, but it can bring about continuous pain. As the saying goes, if you get beaten a lot, you will naturally know how to fight back, and the same is true for Peter. After the special training, even the system recognized the existence of this skill, and he was already a master of this devilish technique. When he first got it, Peter was extremely disgusted. He vowed to seal it in the depths of the system warehouse forever, but he didn't expect that there would be room for it to play. Today will be the day to unlock the seal and carry it forward, and Thompson and his party lying on the ground are very lucky to be able to experience this set of artistic techniques for free. Peter walked towards the crowd with a smile on his face. He couldn't help recalling the experience of being bullied before, and then looked at the screaming crowd. He knew what to do at this time, and prepared to increase the strength in his hand. On the other side, Harry, who went back to the restaurant to get his school bag, also came to the basketball court, and saw a completely different Peter, a real man hitting 10. Although it is still unclear what exactly happened, it must be the fault of Thompson and others. Harry put away his school bag and rushed up to give him a few kicks. At this time, Gwen also woke up from this sudden change. She couldn't correspond to the gentle impression in her previous memory of the Peter who beat up the school lunatic in front of her. These two are not the same person at all, but she also knows that there is no time to think about it, it is time to stop it. Because the students nearby have already started to surround him, it is completely conceivable what the students will do next. Onlookers watched this big show of male plus male, and posted it on the internet to show off with many sand sculpture netizens. As for stopping it, it is impossible to stop it, eating melon is the first. In the end, it is estimated that this matter will become a big issue on the internet, which will affect the reputation of the school. Then Peter will be the most unfavorable person in this incident. In 9 out of 10 cases, he will be pushed out to bear this newly baked scapegoat. If the situation is serious, he will be expelled from school. In any case, Peter actually blocked that ball for her in a way. So Gwen thinks that she can't just leave like this, not to mention solving the matter perfectly, at least to avoid the situation from deteriorating. Gwen stepped forward and grabbed Peter's arm, and persuaded in the most gentle voice. Peter, calm down, if you continue, you will be expelled from school, so let's end it like this. Harry on the side also said, Peter, this group of people should also know that they were wrong. Now their parents probably won't recognize their son. The persuasion of the two made Peter, who was in memory, gradually come back to his senses. It is definitely acceptable for friends to put themselves in their shoes, and there is no need to worry Uncle Ben and the others because of this group of people. And the set meal is almost finished. It is estimated that they will be safe and sound in the next few days and become a qualified and kind-hearted college student. Maybe because of this, they embarked on the road to success. At that time, their parents will definitely come to thank them for the kindness of discipline. Peter got up and clapped his hands, and offered the last piece of insurance to the terrified crowd. If any of you still want to continue, you can come to me at any time, and I promise to be on call, especially you, my good classmate Thompson. Seeing Gwen and Harry behind Peter, Thompson and his party knew that they were doomed at this time. Coupled with the pain in their bodies, no one chose to utter wild words, and only hoped that Peter could leave quickly. On the way back to the classroom, Peter expressed his most sincere thanks to Gwen. After all, it is rare to see someone like Gwen who is willing to stay and help, especially when the two parties are still strangers. It's nothing. Actually, I want to thank you. You should be careful when you go home in the next week. They may find someone halfway. Thinking of the possibility of this danger, Gwen took out his phone and made a suggestion. Well, let's leave a phone call for each other. If there is a real danger, you can inform me in time. I can help you in this regard. Although Peter wanted to say that there was no need for that, seeing Gwen's caring eyes, he couldn't bear to refuse this concern, and it was definitely not for the idea of getting a girl's phone call. After leaving the phone number, Gwen said that there were other things to do, and if there was something to call in the future, she turned around and left. Wake up. People are almost gone and still watching. Peter, pay attention to his image. His saliva is about to flow out. It seems that the power of Cupid's arrow is still quite strong. Harry looked at the buddy who had become the watchman's stone, joked. What are you thinking? Peter cast contemptuous glances at Harry, and threw out his right hand as an internationally accepted gesture. He turned around and touched the corner of his mouth with his other hand, only to find that there was no saliva at all. Cheated. Harry stared at Peter's left hand, with a big smile on his face, as if to say, that's it. Continued. And Peter, you have to thank me. I have been silent just now, otherwise this mobile phone number. Go. This can be regarded as your credit. When did you become so shameless? However, Gwen's behavior also reminded Peter of the question given by Big Daddy. Maybe Big Daddy could really choose Gwen's father, George Stacy. Seeing that Peter was in a daze, Harry thought he was worried about the revenge of Thompson and others. Gwen's father is the chief of the police station, so call him when the time comes. Don't be ashamed. Besides, there is me. Peter shook his head and said, no, I'll think about other things. Let's go back to the classroom. Class is about to start. There is another important piece of information. Currently, Gwen's internship is in the project of Dr. Connors. Think about such a good opportunity. Harry continued to break the news with a smile. In the afternoon, due to the timely stop of his friends on the court, Peter, who failed to become famous on campus, returned to his essence in the classroom. He became a good student who listened carefully in class and entered the state that a student should have. But after a class, he reluctantly expressed that there can only be one of the two between listening to the class and focusing, and they cannot be compatible and parallel for the time being. However, in the course of the afternoon, Peter also had a preliminary understanding of the knowledge he had mastered. The current learning difficulty is not high, but if he wants to return to the level of the previous master, he still needs to pay a lot of effort. On the other hand, Harry was also busier than he said. Before a class was over, the phone in his pocket rang 7 or 8 times. Peter, who was sitting by the side, faintly heard Harry mentioning words such as Stark and Stocks, but he was half asleep and half awake, and didn't think much about it. So during the recess, Harry asked the teacher for leave, terminated his status as a student early, and left the school. After school at night, Peter went home alone and nothing happened, and he got home safely. The first day of school was barely past, which made him feel a little uncomfortable, and even began to miss the miserable life a month ago. In this way, in the next week, Peter lived a life of 2 points in one line, with only 2 destinations every day, home and school. And at night, the plan of going out was also cancelled. The main reason was that Big Daddy listened to Peter's opinion and became a non-staff member of the police in this crime-fighting operation through the information in his hand. I heard some dangerous rumors from it. The police had received strong support from an unknown force, and in the big family, they were finally qualified to fight hard, and truly had the right to be the masters of their own affairs. After all, rights are rarely supported, so the police made a unanimous determination to quell this incident as soon as possible and reverse the image of the police. They have mobilized a large number of police forces from other regions into New York. Now the number of police officers in the city has skyrocketed in an instant, and every street is searched by someone, almost miraculously recording no dead ends. For this reason, Big Daddy also brought Peter and Mindy to the safe house for a meeting, warning them not to go out during this period. In general, the police are really doing their best, and every police officer has pumped up his horsepower to add an extra bargaining chip for his promotion and salary increase. Over the past week, the record has been extremely brilliant. Some small and medium-sized criminal groups on the bright side have been wiped out by the police. On Friday night, after a week of school life ended, Peter lay on the sofa after dinner and blindly pressed the remote control while the TV programs were constantly changing. Bell, bell, bell. The ringtone of the mobile phone interrupted Peter's dazed time. He picked up the mobile phone casually and asked lazily, "Hello, who is it?" What's the matter? It's me, Peter. Hurry down now, I'm almost downstairs to your house. Mindy's cheerful voice came from the other end of the phone. What's the matter? Why did you come to my house suddenly? Wait for a while. I'll go down now. Yawning and stretching, Peter slowly got off the sofa and came to the door to wait. This way. There was a clear sound of the engine, and Mindy, who had a lot of bags, was driving a motorcycle into the backyard, and it slammed on the brakes to stop beside Peter. How cool. Peter gave a thumbs up. It's amazing, Mindy, but when did you have so much money in your small coffers? You probably stole Uncle Damon's money, right? How is it possible? Forget it, I won't talk nonsense with you. This car will be yours from now on, take the key. Mindy got off the motorcycle, handed over the key in his hand and said. What? This car is mine now, this. Peter expressed his confusion, completely unaware of what was going on, and just took the key handed to him along the way. Mindy half explained and half joked. This car is a gift from me and Big Daddy. It is used as a means of transportation for your going out, so you don't need to squeeze the bus and subway in the future, which is time-consuming. It's laborious. Unexpectedly, it would be this reason. Peter had mixed feelings in his heart, and he didn't know what to say to express his gratitude for a while. He could only use laughter to cover up his current state, and after a while he asked, Thank you, Mindy, are you alone? Isn't Uncle Damon here? Mindy immediately rolled his eyes, and said angrily, Speak in a normal tone, you are ashamed to ask. What kind of idea was it before? Dad is active now, he leaves early and returns late every day. I haven't seen him for 3 or 4 days, and don't mention him to me. Facing the irritable Mindy, Peter could only change the subject, and defended his proposal. Really, it's not all my fault, and I didn't expect Uncle Damon to be so desperate. Do you want to sit up? I recently bought several large games, absolutely fun. No, I'm going crazy staying at home this week. I just want to go out and play now. Besides, why don't you go shopping for a new car? Mindy retorted with a gloomy face. Seeing Peter's hesitation, Mindy changed his mood in an instant, and said excitedly with hands and feet, Stop thinking about it. Go outside for a few laps, don't you yearn for the colorful world outside? Peter was already defeated by Mindy's face-changing skills. When he saw that Mindy wanted to pounce on him, he immediately stretched out his hands to express his submission, and said, I'm convinced. Wait for me, I'll go upstairs and change my clothes before going out. Bar. Mindy turned around and handed over the big and small bags behind him. Wait, put these things in your room by the way, and I'll pick them up later when I come back. Along the way, Mindy complained heartily about the hardships of life after the lockdown, during which Peter made a suggestion. Then you can go to school, get in touch with more peers, maybe you can find new fun. Mindy said something directly, and cast a suspicious look. Shut up. Why do you look like Dad? You two must have colluded. Peter, who was driving, was taken aback. He almost lost control of driving in a straight line. He didn't expect Mindy's intuition to be so accurate. Could it be that this is a woman's intuition? Fortunately, he was riding a motorcycle, and Mindy couldn't see the change in his face. Otherwise, this lie was destined to be exposed in a face-to-face situation. In fact, while waiting for Mindy just now, Big Daddy called again. After a very simple explanation, he hung up the phone. The father and daughter whispered code words together. At that time, Peter was standing at the door of the house with a dazed expression on his face. With the current situation, he can probably guess what Big Daddy's plan is. Now that the enemy is gone, Big Daddy's idea of wanting Mindy to return to a normal life has also risen to the top of the list. Letting Mindy go to school to meet people of the same age is naturally the first step of the plan. Peter calmed down and said calmly, How is it possible? It's not like you don't know that Uncle Damon has been busy recently. How can you have time to contact me? Don't get excited. Can you tell me the reason? Mindy's eyes flickered with a murderous look, staring at the figure in front of him, and then explained aloud. It's better not to pay attention to your ghost. Otherwise, I don't know what my father is thinking, but he wants me go play house with a bunch of immature kids. Hearing this, Peter could feel the soaring murderous intent behind him, and he panicked even more, because this matter really had so much to do with him. The situation was like this. Peter, who was at home at that time, was idle and bored, so he discussed his future life with Big Daddy, and both of them expressed their visions for the future. When Big Daddy expressed his troubles about Mindy's current state, he made a suggestion, let Mindy go to school. Didn't expect Big Daddy's actions to be so fast, and now Mindy is about to find out the real culprit, and now he has to doubt Big Daddy's intentions. It feels like a disaster is being shifted eastward. No, this matter must not be allowed to continue to be guessed by Mindy like this, otherwise he will be annoyed to death. This Big Daddy is definitely behind it, and he has nothing to do with Peter. Because there is no need to think too much about the persuasion process, it must be that the big man of steel, Big Daddy, is too hasty. And Mindy just happened to be at the age of rebellion, coupled with his previous life, he yearned for freedom abnormally. For a while, no one could convince anyone of the state of the two of them, and in the end the Big Daddy must have put on his father's identity again. The power fell and everything was decided without authorization, and the two naturally became tit for tat and incompatible. How come? I'm on your side, you must believe me. What's the situation with Uncle Damon? Peter vowed to express his position, and guided Mindy to take another path. Sure enough, as expected, Mindy then began to bombard Big Daddy in all directions, 360 degrees without any dead angle and not letting go of any detail. Faced with so many black histories of Big Daddy, what reason could Peter refuse? Of course he chose to accept them all. This is a rare and great opportunity to listen to the glorious history of Big Daddy. After seeing what Mindy said, he felt a little thirsty. Peter took Mindy to the dessert shop, borrowed a pen and paper from the store manager, and took notes. In the end, the Takao meeting came to an end when Mindy drank the whole cup of milk tea in one go. Peter took out his mobile phone and glanced at the time and said, "How, are you feeling better? It's almost 10 o'clock, and it's quite late now. What should we do? Back home." Peter. Why can't I understand what you're talking about? Mindy used the legendary cuteness tactics and asked back with a confused face. Don't play dumb here, Mindy, you little wit. Of course, Peter was not tempted. There are still several game masterpieces at home that start at $1 billion level waiting to be unsealed. Doghead, Dafa. After a fierce battle, Mindy was finally defeated by a strong opponent and reluctantly agreed to the suggestion to go home. However, after arguing with reason and pretending to be pitiful, he also succeeded in obtaining the privilege of a 3-day tour at Peter's house. Peter grabbed Mindy with one hand. Avoid this sinister criminal, escape and head to the parking lot with Mindy's bag in one hand. At this time, I found an unexpected problem. The motorcycle I parked here before is now missing. He asked full of doubts. Mindy, was our motorcycle here just now? It seems to have disappeared. The dejected Mindy suddenly regained his spirits, looked around and snorted coldly. Let's go. There are many people around the telegraph pole in front, there should be clues. The two walked closer and saw a big character poster posted on it, which said, I don't know where you came from, young master. You dare to use such a lock on our site. I'm sorry if you don't steal your car. Let's improve our memory in the future. Before he finished reading, Peter knew that something was going to happen. He turned his head and saw that Mindy was really angry, and his whole body was ready to go. He had no choice but to hug him and drag him into a deserted alley beside him. Mindy's accumulated anger this week was completely ignited at this time, and he said angrily, Let go of me, Peter, I'm going to destroy them. I spent 3 days and 3 nights to carefully select this car. How dare these bastards challenge us? Looking at Mindy's flushed little face, Peter knew that the idea of going home without a good reason was going to cool off, but considering the recent situation. Opening his mouth to persuade. Look, didn't you bring your equipment? It's not good to use bare hands. Tomorrow we. Before he finished speaking, Mindy grabbed the school bag in Peter's hand. Don't worry, I carry all of them here. Besides, there is our safe house nearby, and there are enough weapons in it. Then how are you going to find someone? New York is a big place, full of people. Peter made a final struggle against Mindy, who had experienced many battles. Don't worry, I installed a locator on the car before, and those bastards can't escape from my palm. Mindy gritted his teeth. All the problems were solved by Mindy one by one, and Peter was refuted to the point where he had nothing to say, so he could only comfort himself. Forget it, let's just let Mindy relax. Peter first took out his mobile phone and sent a message to Uncle Ben and the others, so as not to worry about returning home late. He said helplessly, well, let's hurry up and set off to the safe house, let's go back early. Under Mindy's lead, the two came to the entrance of a sewer in a detour. Mindy took out a mask from his school bag and threw it to Peter, then dived into the sewer. Peter followed closely behind. After going down inside, I found that this sewer is much wider than expected. From the visual inspection, a normal-sized car can drive here without any problem. After walking along the sewer for about 10 minutes and passing through many rusty iron gates, the two finally reached their destination. Peter also found that the safe house was not large, only some weapons and first aid kits were piled on the table. It should be just a temporary foothold, and he was blindfolded. Mindy started to tidy up the backpack, stuffed the required weapons into it in an orderly manner, opened the laptop from the table and connected it to the mobile phone, tapped the keyboard with flying hands, and maps of various regions in New York gradually appeared on the screen. Staring at the screen, he analyzed. I started to activate the locator now and connected it. Now the position of the motorcycle is still moving. but the speed is getting slower and slower. He beckoned Peter to come over. Look, they should be arriving at their lair soon. According to the current trajectory of their actions, the destination should be the area around Hell's Kitchen. Time waits for no one. Let's set off immediately. Peter looked at the map in front of him and asked doubts, but there is still an important question. How do we go? There is still a distance from Hell's Kitchen, and we don't have a car. Don't worry. I've thought about it a long time ago. It just so happens that there is a road near here that leads to Hell's Kitchen. I walked with Big Daddy before, and there is no danger on the road. While changing into the equipment, Mindy patted his chest confidently and gave a guarantee. Although there was still an ominous premonition in his heart, Peter still chose to trust Mindy, finished dressing in a second, squatted down and said, "Come on, I will carry you forward, and we will try to get home before 12 o'clock today." Under Mindy's command, Peter started his journey in the sewers of New York. As he continued to advance, the surrounding environment became worse and worse, and water and domestic garbage could be seen everywhere on the ground. At the same time, he also discovered an extremely bad situation. The peculiar smell of the sewer was pervasive, gradually exceeding the level that the human body could bear. What's more, with the greatly enhanced facial features and the bonus of the battlesuit, at this time he is receiving 3 times the gift from the sewers in New York. Buy one get 2 free, triple the happiness, made him seem to see the truth of life, and he was about to lose himself here. The appearance of the fork in the road made Peter wake up a little bit, and asked in a low voice. Towards Mindy, "How far is the exit from us?" Mindy's state is also close to the critical point, pointing to the front and typing on the mobile phone. "Turn right, there is an exit 3 meters ahead, and then you can touch the manhole cover, 1 meters up." Peter quickened his pace and started the final sprint. It can be said that he used up all his breastfeeding strength, just to leave this treasure place as quickly as possible. He didn't want to stay for a moment. Who? The 2 people who left the sewer were paralyzed on the ground like a salted fish. The surroundings were pitch black, and even the moon in the sky was temporarily covered by clouds, and only the 2 of them gasped in the dark night. Seeing Mindy's embarrassment at this time, Peter, who was usually oppressed by language, did not miss the opportunity, and the state of poisonous tongue was activated. "Mindy, your car is overturned. I actually believe you. I really didn't take my brains out today. I feel extremely regretful now. And it's a good thing I ran fast, otherwise tomorrow's gossip newspaper will have a share of both of us. Why did a man and a woman appear in the sewer in the middle of the night? What is the unknown story behind this? What is it?" As he spoke, Peter could no longer control his laughter. Faced with Peter's self-deprecating ridicule, Mindy couldn't help laughing out loud, and at the same time heard the uncontrollable laughter. She seemed to see the next situation of arrogance and loss of power. At that time, Peter was the one and only existence, and she had to go home if she wanted to go home. She had no right to refuse, because she made a major mistake. In order to prevent such a tragic thing from happening, Mindy first took a deep breath to calm himself down. Then he explained. "I came to Hell's Kitchen with my father a month ago. The taste of this road before was not so exaggerated. I also didn't expect such a big change in 1 month." Then quietly laid a deadly trap. "Peter, take a look around. Do you feel that this neighborhood is unusually familiar?" Laughing wildly, Peter obediently stepped into the trap like a hare dazzled by victory, looked around and replied subconsciously. "Really, it's really familiar, this place seems to be." Seeing the prey falling into the trap, Mindy naturally wouldn't be merciful, and quickly launched the final blow. "This is the place where you stayed stupidly for a week a month ago, so you don't feel familiar with it. You were really so familiar back then. Silly and naive, as it is now." Mindy's contemptuous eyes and regretful tone caused continuous critical damage to Peter in an instant, and the laughter stopped at lightning speed. "Haha, that was just an accident." Peter quickly changed the subject. "Mindy, should you go or not? You smell really bad now. Why don't you go home and clean up first?" Seeing that the situation was under control, Mindy naturally had no interest in continuing to argue, and expressed his attitude in an angry tone. "Go. How can you not go? It's right ahead. I'm going to take those bastards to the sewer for a while. 3 days and nights." Speaking of which, Mindy turned on the phone to confirm the location. A smile spread across his face, and he said excitedly, "The bastards are not far ahead, Peter, let's set off immediately." Looking at Mindy's eyes full of murderous intent, Peter knew that if no one was caught tonight, the topic of going home would probably be impossible to come up. Even without going to bed, it is possible to fight until 6 o'clock in the morning. Nodding his head, he echoed, "Let's go, hurry up." The infrastructure in this area is worse than it was a month ago, when there were still a few streetlights that could shine. But now the whole street is plunged into darkness, and the parts of several street lamps must have been dismantled and sold. But it wasn't a problem for Peter. On the contrary, this environment also brought a benefit. He didn't need to care about the cameras on the street, and he flew over like a swing with spider silk along the way. At this moment, Mindy, who was staring at the phone, frowned, patted Peter on the shoulder and said, "Peter, something seems wrong here, we need to stop and check the surrounding situation." After hearing that, Peter landed immediately without the slightest hesitation. After all, Mindy wouldn't joke about this kind of thing. Putting Mindy down, he asked, "Mindy, what's the matter, do you find anything wrong?" "I don't know, it's just an intuition. The after effect of the sewer smell just now is too severe. My mind is blank now," Mindy said weakly. Seeing Peter's confused face, Mindy picked up the phone and opened the map to analyze. They are in a state of stopping now, and their position is less than 2 kilometers ahead. But logically speaking, they shouldn't stop at that position, and the timing of the stop was too sudden, as if being attacked by someone. After speaking, Mindy seemed to think of something, stared at the red dot on the phone and fell into a state of contemplation, unable to extricate himself as if he had entered a maze of thinking, and could not get out for a long time. Peter glanced at Mindy, then at the time, and said, "Mindy, think about it slowly. I'll go around here and see if I can find other clues." Using the spider's silk, he started to wander around. Unfortunately, he didn't find anything. The street was very quiet, and the only sound was the car horn on the main road in the distance. After a long time, Mindy's brain finally came to his senses, and he found the relevant ideas. He picked up the binoculars and looked in a specific direction, looking for buildings one by one. The hard work paid off. She found it, and said calmly, "Peter, in the direction of your 11 o'clock, there is a person lying in the corner of the alley. Seen in the documentation." "Got it. Then I'll go and have a look. Mindy, please pay attention to your surroundings, be careful of emergencies." After speaking, Peter sent a spider web to the mentioned location. Looking at the bright red demon battlesuit in front of him, the memories in Peter's mind rolled again. This person is Daredevil Matt Murdock, who belongs to a very small group of superheroes in memory. After all, other superheroes can go to heaven and earth, and they are almost omnipotent. The seriousness of Daredevil's style has already lost at the beginning, but Peter is very impressed with Daredevil. On his 7th birthday, he received a birthday present from his uncle, which was an animated CD about Daredevil. "When I received such an interesting gift when I was a child, I couldn't hold back the whole person, and I didn't sleep at night to watch it secretly. As a result, I had a terrible nightmare that night, and I didn't dare to sleep alone, so I had to go to sleep with my parents. When I woke up the next day, I ate a big meal of mixed doubles with my parents. This memory is still unforgettable to this day. Therefore, I still remember most of the content of the Daredevil animation. This person should be regarded as the only light in Hell's Kitchen. A person who was born in Hell's Kitchen, grew up in Hell's Kitchen, and became a superhero in the end. I have to say that this fate arrangement is really incredible, and it is very emotional." The young Matt lived in Hell's Kitchen with his father. Because of an accident, his eyes completely lost their light, and Matt became a blind man who could only live in darkness for the rest of his life. Just when hope was completely lost for the world, Matt's father stood up at this difficult moment, and he did not abandon Matt. Instead, he stepped forward to shield his young son from wind and rain, and became the first mentor in Matt's life. His father is a boxer by profession. In the ring, he has knocked down his opponents again and again, and has been knocked down by his opponents again and again, but after being knocked down, he can still stand up again and face the ring without fear. All challenges. In daily life, he improved the correct 3 views for Matt. Even a blind person who is blind can have the qualification to love the world, and clearly told Matt what a person should really be in life. Later, in a life and death match, although the person in charge had already informed him that he needed to play a match-fixing match, in front of his son, he resolutely chose to strengthen himself and declared to Matt the true choice of a man with his life. It was a stormy night. Young Matt found his father who had fallen to the ground in an alley near his home, and it was that day that he lost his last relative in the world. In the days when he lost his father's protection, Matt's living environment has plummeted. Being insulted, cheated, beaten, and not getting enough to eat has become commonplace, an indispensable role in daily life, and sometimes even personal safety. There is also no corresponding guarantee. It is very difficult for a child to survive alone in the largest slum in New York City, not to mention that Matt is blind and cannot see the light. This period of difficult days made the young Matt lose the courage to live for a while, but fortunately Matt met the second mentor in his life, the old man. Stick took in the young Matt and gave him the hope of a new life, and under the guidance of Stick, Matt's own potential abilities were deeply developed, and he successfully mastered the super senses that are different from ordinary people. At the same time, it was also during this period of good time that the young Matt was gradually born with a dream in his heart after being taught by the old man and various experiences in life. In front of his father's grave, the young Matt swore to himself and his father that he would change the place where he grew up, Hell's Kitchen. He wanted to bring Hell's Kitchen back to the normal track and make this place truly bright. Hope. Chasing his dream, Matt chose to study law in his 4 years of university, hoping to use the power of law to realize his dream and change the status quo in Hell's Kitchen. In college, Matt was excellent in many aspects. Although he had many opportunities to leave this devilish place, he still chose to return to the original starting point, Hell's Kitchen, for his dream. Because Matt felt in his heart that if he left, he would really not have the courage and confidence to step into this land after a few years. After graduation, although he had made sufficient preparations in many aspects, the reality still slapped Matt several times, telling him that this was far from enough. After stepping into the society, Matt tasted all kinds of hardships in life, and gradually realized that there are still all kinds of injustices in life that the law cannot solve. Not to mention, in the complex environment of Hell's Kitchen, the law can play very little role, and it is even a heavy pressure for the poor. However, Matt was not discouraged because of this. On the contrary, from these failed experiences, he fully realized that the essence of law is a tool. In some powerful groups, the law has become the protection of their crimes. This period of failed experience allowed Matt to further strengthen his dream planning. He made a behavior that shocked his colleagues. He entered Hell's Kitchen and set up a law firm to provide free legal help to the poor. Fate is extremely ironic. It was also on a rainy night that Matt used his power beyond ordinary people to save a woman, and that night he officially became the light in the dark, Daredevil. As a result, in the following days, Hell's Kitchen added a lawyer and a vigilante. During the day, Matt was a rookie lawyer whose career had just started, and at night he put on a mask and became a vigilante, fighting crime in the dark and guarding the party land. I remembered Peter. He is Daredevil. This man has a very strange style of doing things, but Dad said he is barely a good man. What is his situation now? Mindy's question made Peter come out of his memory. At the same time, the system also came out to join in the excitement. Congratulations to the host for triggering the task. Childhood memories. Childhood memories. Please help Daredevil, a fool in the eyes of the world, get out of trouble. Task reward. Sea-level general draw once. Please note that there are many unknown things hidden behind this mission. For the system's shameless predictions, Peter couldn't even have the desire to complain. It was too much time and energy. Isn't the story behind every superhero who can be called a superhero like this? After turning around and looking around, Peter couldn't find anything that could be used as a bandage, so he could only throw a large amount of blue flame-style spider silk at Matt's wound, replacing quality with quantity, which barely stopped the large-scale blood loss. However, the biggest problem still hasn't been solved. The wound on the abdomen is still too serious. The effect of the spider silk is only to delay time. The secondary bleeding of the wound is only a matter of time, just like an active volcano that may erupt at any time. If you want to really avoid the call from the god of death, you still need to rush to the hospital for professional treatment in time. Mindy. I remember there was a medical kit on the table just now. Did you put it in your school bag? Peter. Listen to me now, I've found the answer. Mindy's urgent voice came. You take people out of the place as soon as possible. People around here are already watching us, and I'm also approaching you. Okay. I'll rush over to meet you right away. This reminder made Peter realize that he had made a major mistake. Even though they had already seen Daredevil being seriously injured and unconscious on the street, they didn't expect his enemy to be nearby. The next situation is clear at a glance. Daredevil was seriously injured, so the enemy must not let go of this great opportunity, and will definitely come to him, sending the final blow and a trip to hell. And what Mindy feels at this moment may be the person who is being searched, which also means that he may encounter an enemy at any time. Thinking of this, Peter lifted the seriously injured Matt and fixed him behind his back. Although I don't know whether it will speed up the second bleeding of the wound, but at this time, I don't care so much. I can only apologize to Matt in my heart. After all, an enemy who can seriously injure Daredevil is almost invincible to Mindy, not to mention that Daredevil's enemies in his memory are never alone, usually accompanied by a dozen younger brothers. Once Mindy is careless, the possibility of meeting God tonight will be as high as 100%. By then, Peter will really have no face to go back to see Big Daddy. All kinds of ominous predictions in his mind made Peter speed up his movements again, and Matt behind him couldn't help coughing slightly. Looking back, he was still in a coma, as if it was just the body's stress response, simply expressing that the wound was pressed. Prompted by this sense of crisis, Peter completed the reinforcement of Matt as quickly as possible, and rushed over immediately after launching the spider silk. Fortunately, the distance between the two was not too far. After 10 breaths, Peter had already seen Mindy's figure. The situation predicted in his mind did not happen, and he was about to relax with a breath in his heart. The scene has changed again, and this time the development of the situation looks a little bad. I saw one strange figure after another gradually appearing around the corner, blocking the way for Peter and Mindy to meet. The uniform black and red clothing, the weapon in his hand, and Matt who was injured on the back reminded Peter of their true identities. They are Daredevil's most difficult enemies, ninjas from the hand. Each of them is a master of weapons, proficient in various fighting skills and assassination methods, and is known as the sharpest minion of the hand. Peter couldn't help feeling a headache. If I remember correctly, these ninjas have become a group of monsters. Life and death, pain, and emotions no longer exist in them. The most important point is that they achieve immortality in some way, and this is the most difficult part of the hand. Looking at the group of ninjas who were staring at each other, Peter did not throw Matt to Mindy, but threw out spider webs again to reinforce Matt behind him. If Peter did not predict wrongly this time, then Matt behind him will be the key to breaking the deadlock. After the reinforcement was completed, Peter immediately exposed Matt behind him. As expected, compared with the two, Daredevil was their first target. The eyes of most of the ninjas were attracted, and they stared at Peter indifferently. They should be staring at the unconscious Matt, but there were still 4 or 5 ninjas around Mindy, in order to further relieve Mindy's pressure. Peter decided to play a bigger wave, to add fuel to the fire, and reminded loudly, "Hey guys, look over here, look who is Daredevil, come over to me, I'm going to call Daredevil, leave it to you." As soon as the words fell, more than 30 ninjas formed an arrow and charged at Peter like jackals who had been hungry for a long time. The sharp steel knife in their hands was particularly dazzling under the moonlight. Facing the assault team with more than a dozen steel knives, Peter was alone with his bare hands and a seriously injured person on his back. Naturally, he would not choose to go head-to-head with the ninja and force him to fight. After all, the reason why human beings can stand on the top of the earth and stand out from the crowd is mainly because human beings have learned to use weapons, and with the help of weapons, they can complete that miraculous and shocking reversal. Peter kept retreating and quickly throwing out a lot of spider silk, delaying the progress of the ninjas, while observing the surroundings to find favorable terrain, preferably a quick battle. He knew that he couldn't delay any longer, because the support of the Hand Society might be around, and they might arrive at any time to attack Peter. At that time, even if he can hit 100, it will be difficult to escape, not to mention the injury on Matt's body cannot continue to drag on. Looking around, Peter's eyes finally brightened. The alley 20 meters ahead to the right fits the battlefield in his mind very well. The narrow terrain can fully reduce the ninja's number advantage, and there are a few crumbling light poles beside the alley exit, which can just be used as weapons, and the length of more than 2 meters is enough to offset the sharpness of the steel knife. As the saying goes, an inch is long and an inch is strong. No matter how sharp a steel knife is, if it can't hit someone, it will be a scrap of iron after all, and it will not pose any danger to him at all. Peter acted immediately, turned around and threw the spider silk around both ends of the light pole, grabbed the spider thread with both hands and began to exert force. The light pole was pulled out instantly, and a few pieces of soil followed, splashing on the ninja behind him. Peter rushed to the exit of the alley, took the commanding heights, and desperately swung the 2-meter-long light pole. With the advantage of the length of the light pole, he delivered a headshot to every ninja who came. Under the blessing of various factors such as the swaying of the huge force and the acceleration of the height, the kinetic energy of the light pole has reached its peak. Here, Peter played the momentum of "one man guards the gate, 10,000 men do not open." With the dance of the light pole, those ninjas who tried to use the sharpness of the steel knife to cut off the light pole were all knocked out without any accident. Some even directly exceeded the limit of the body's tolerance, and the whole person disappeared directly into ashes in place. However, this group of ninjas is also worthy of being called the sharpest minions of the hand, with extremely rich combat experience. After a few rounds of confrontation, they found that they could not break through, so they changed their combat plan without a trace of hesitation. The remaining ninjas quickly dispersed and began to attack from all directions like a pack of wolves. Their attacks were like waves of ebbing seawater, and each knife was a fatal blow. The situation took a turn for the worse, and the light pole, a sharp weapon on the battlefield, turned into a piece of useless scrap iron in Peter's hands. It could no longer bring much help, but further restricted the flexibility of the battle. Peter immediately threw the light pole out, letting the light pole play its final role. The light pole pierced through the sky like a bolt of lightning and instantly pierced through several ninjas in front of them, turning them all into ashes. Although the number of ninjas is gradually decreasing, the current battle situation is still not optimistic for Peter. Because the remaining ninjas were not affected by half a dime at all, they still had a face like facial paralysis, waving the steel knife in their hands expressionlessly. It seems to illustrate their determination. Their first goal has never changed, that is to bring back the seriously injured Daredevil at all costs. In the sea of knives, Peter managed to see all directions and listen to all directions. He has turned into a seagull soaring in the storm. Every second is a thrilling moment, and people can't help but sweat for him. Hey, everyone, don't be so excited. Look at Daredevil. Peter stimulated the ninja as much as possible through words, while looking around for new favorable terrain. Peter raised his eyes and looked up, only to realize that his actual combat experience was still too little, which limited his combat thinking. Isn't midair his natural home field? After another escape without any risk, Peter threw out the spider web to the tall building in front of him. Exerting all his strength, he started to take off. Not to be outdone, the ninja followed closely behind, and used teamwork to perform a perfect level of parkour to catch up. If you looked at it from a distance, you would think it was performing a large-scale flying magic, and the picture was very exciting. A one-on-one situation was achieved as he wished in midair. Of course, Peter would not let go of this great opportunity to beat the dog in the water. He took advantage of the victory and pursued frantically to expand his advantage and reduce the number of ninjas as quickly as possible. Dude, how dare you break away from the main force? Look at Daredevil. Whenever he saw a ninja wanting to back down, Peter would definitely say something, and of course all the responses he got were ruthless faces, eyes full of murderous intent and a bold death charge. Implementing the kite flying method, among the many abandoned residential buildings, Peter successfully sent all the remaining ninjas back to their hometown, Springwater. Just when he thought it was about to end, several ninja figures suddenly appeared in the shadows, roaring in his heart, "This group of hands is really shameless." The ninja once again surrounded Peter, and the time passed by every second, and the two sides began to fall into a stalemate. Peter couldn't get rid of the ninjas in the shortest time, and the ninjas also couldn't take away the seriously injured Daredevil from Peter. At this time, the idea of retreat had begun to appear, and gradually gained the upper hand in his mind. Peter knew clearly that if the Hand Guild could not be solved at the root, then even if all the ninjas were wiped out tonight, it would be useless. Because this group of ninjas is just a batch of tool people on the assembly line for the Hand Association, as long as there are sufficient resources and time, the Hand Association can summon a large number of ninjas again at any time. But as far as the retreat itself is concerned, there is also a problem that Peter cannot avoid, that is, can he and Mindy plus a seriously injured Matt, such an obvious trio, get rid of the tracking of these ninjas in this area? In this regard, Peter's confidence is obviously insufficient. After all, this group of ninjas come from the notorious Hand, and they have various tracking methods that emerge in endlessly. At that time, if there is an extra event, the Hand will find out his true identity, and the harm will be unpredictable. This is something Peter has to consider. This world is already a real world for Peter. He is no longer the bystander that he was at the beginning, and he can leave at will. Now he has become a participant in this world. Now that he has stepped into this vortex, fate will never allow you to leave easily. On the other side, the ninjas also noticed Peter's intention to leave. Their eyes gradually turned red, and the attack began to move towards Matt behind them. The rhythm of the battle slowly began to lean towards the ninja side. Various life-for-life attacks and Matt's re-injury forced Peter to focus more on defense. Looking at the group of cold-blooded machines in front of him, he couldn't help but feel irritated. Although the group of ninjas had been sent back to their hometown by Peter to rest one after another, the continuous fighting made Peter realize one thing. This seemingly life and death situation is just an illusion deliberately created. Their real purpose is to delay time and wait for nearby support. However, Peter also found an opportunity from it. Several fatal attacks from behind did not escape, but Matt's final injury was only a minor injury. At this moment, Peter knew that he had to make a decision as soon as possible, and he decided to gamble with this group of ninjas that what they needed was a living Daredevil. I can only say silently in my heart, "I'm sorry, brother Matt, I didn't expect to rely on you in the end to be able to pull the tide." He threw out the spider silk again to wrap Matt's body up and down, especially the heart, head and other important parts with a lot of spider silk. The final result was like a mummy, and Matt was perfectly entangled by the spider silk. Peter began to implement the plan to use Daredevil as bait, but fortunately, things developed exactly as expected. The ninja's first choice for Daredevil is to catch him alive, and he won't kill him on the spot until the end. Under the premise that Matt acted as a bait, the ninja's attack began to be a little weak, and the ninjas did not expect that the target would be delivered to them, and the body had already made a decision first. Taking advantage of this favorable situation, Peter punched one ninja, and quickly beat all the remaining ninjas to ashes. This encounter finally came to a temporary end. Even at this moment, Peter did not relax his inner vigilance. He continued to observe his surroundings and found no traces of the ninjas before leaving with peace of mind. After getting rid of this group of difficult ninjas, Peter immediately picked up the earphones and sent out a message that he was about to go back, hoping that Mindy could persist for a while. At the same time, I also found that the time has only passed 10 minutes, and it is possible to make mistakes in the perception of time in a state of concentration. But this is a good piece of good news. After the fueling, at that time, through the corner of his eye, Peter could confirm that there were only 3 or 4 ninjas left around Mindy. It should be possible to deal with it for about 10 minutes. Maybe Mindy achieved a counter kill all by himself. There is nothing wrong with it. Mindy's strength is still worth looking forward to. Peter, who was swinging in midair, found out the direction when he came. At this moment, there was only one thought left in his mind, that is to find Mindy as soon as possible, and get out of Hell's Kitchen as soon as possible. Hold on, Mindy, I'll be right there. On the other hand, when Mindy saw a large number of ninjas in strange costumes not far away, he knew that something was wrong. Just as he was about to gather to discuss countermeasures, he found that Peter had led a large number of ninjas away. Mindy's experience is also extremely rich, and he instantly understood Peter's good intentions, calmed down his mood as quickly as possible, and put his body into the best combat state. She knew that the most important thing now was to deal with the remaining 3 ninjas and kill them with all her strength, or fight with the ninjas to delay Peter's return as much as possible. She didn't choose to run away blindly, because when facing a strong enemy, it is extremely stupid to expose her back without any cover. Mindy calmly observed the 3 struggling ninjas in front of him. He could feel the ninjas' hesitation, and they looked in the direction Peter left from time to time. Slowly stepping back step by step, walking towards the alley next door, keeping the noise to a minimum, so as not to disturb the thinking of the 3 ninjas, maybe this battle can really be avoided. It seems that the characters in Peter's hands are really very important to them. Mindy memorized this information silently, and it may be possible to use it in the future. As the distance of Mindy's back continued to increase, the 3 ninjas gradually came to their senses, their expressions still dull, but they all looked at the only stranger on the field, Mindy. The gaze made Mindy realize that this battle is inevitable, and that the real challenge is coming. Life or death depends on the reaction in the next few minutes. Without any verbal communication, the 3 ninjas had reached a consensus. The 3 of them charged in a team, trying to kill the target with one blow. Mindy immediately accelerated the speed of movement, expanded the distance between each other, held the pistol tightly and fired bullets towards multiple corners. The bullets were like the last key to open the mechanism. A burst of thunder-like sound began to sound and the smoke gradually enveloped the surroundings. Looking back, the 3 ninjas were all in the sea of flames at this time. It turns out that during the time when the ninja was hesitating, he had returned to the previous safe point, and Mindy, who had received the true biography of the Big Daddy, had already set up a series of grenade traps here. Seeing that the ninja had triggered the trap, Mindy still didn't relax completely, but this time there was no need to continue retreating, and he would be caught up sooner or later, so why not use the trap to kill the 3 ninjas directly? After changing his combat thinking, Mindy adjusted his position, pulled out his pistol, and quickly pulled the trigger at the trap. It has to be said that this decision was extremely correct. Although the 3 ninjas were in a disabled state after experiencing moderate injuries from grenades and sea of fire, they had not yet reached the critical value of death and did not just fall down. On the contrary, it was very insidious, directly resisting the state of being burned by the flames, crossing the sea of flames, and continued to rush forward without making a sound, trying to make Mindy let down his vigilance. The moment the 3 ninjas rushed out, the bullets appeared just right, and Mindy aimed at the key points such as the head and chest of the ninjas to the greatest extent, preventing the ninjas from getting out of the trap and maximizing the damage. Under the obstruction of the bullets, the 2 ninjas fell down together and turned into ashes. It was this that made Mindy stunned for a moment, and at the same time allowed the last ninja who was seriously injured to escape from the trap and return to the ground. Into the dark. Mindy knew that the situation had reached the most dangerous situation. She wanted to fight the ninja head-on. Fortunately, the ninja was injured, which left her with a chance to fight back. A figure flashed in front of him. This was a ninja's tentative attack. He was looking for Mindy's flaws. Once found, the next blow would officially announce the target's death time. And Mindy quickly switched the weapon in his hand between square inches, and chose the samurai sword. He adjusted his position in small steps, firmly grasped the handle of the knife with both hands, and looked around calmly. One knife after another, Mindy, who stretched his spirit to the limit, mostly escaped without any danger, but there were also a few knives that he did not dodge. The most obvious injury was a butterfly knife on his arm, but fortunately, none of these wounds were in a serious state and did not have much impact on the action. However, after being tested many times, Mindy also found a piece of good news: the ninja's injury was more serious than expected. Therefore, at this critical moment, you must stabilize your mentality and stick to the original combat idea of protracted warfare. You can pursue a fatal blow, but it is not necessary. The ninja in the dark also knew that his body was seriously injured. If he continued to drag, the target in front of him would flee, according to the first principle of combat. Without too much thinking, he rushed directly to the figure below. He tried to achieve the achievement of going to hell with Mindy here, but it was a pity that Mindy rejected this touching invitation. If you want to ask why, of course, the ninja looks too strange. Mindy held a samurai sword in his hand, took a step back, nimbly avoided the ninja's capture, stepped on the ground with his left foot, and swung the sword in his hand with all his strength. The samurai sword pierced through the ninja's neck like a bamboo. A pile of ashes fell to the ground. Looking at the ashes in front of him, Mindy knew that he was very lucky to win. Fortunately, the trap caused enough damage to the ninjas, so that they couldn't use all their abilities, otherwise the consequences would be terrible.